story begins here, in Chicopee, Massachusetts. A small city nestled alongside the Connecticut River. Chicopee is a suburb of Springfield, Mass. It's about 90 miles outside of Boston. Here on bustling Memorial Drive is this busy Friendly's restaurant. It's a place for ice cream celebrations and familiar faces. One of those familiar faces, 20-year-old Amanda Plass. More than a waitress, really. Those who knew her said she was the heart of this place.
Amanda really connected with the customers there.
She had a child that used to come in and only liked red gummy bears on his sundae, so she made his sundae with just the red gummy bears.
That's just how Amanda was. Everybody loved her.
We would come here and we would ask for her because she just brightened our day. She was just a sweetheart.
It was a warm evening in August, right around 5 o'clock, and Malene Holmes sat right here in this Friendly's, waiting for Amanda. Malene was a customer, and she and Amanda had become friends. They were supposed to meet right before Amanda's shift for dinner.
She used to come here and have dinner with us before she'd start her shift. We had been waiting for her, and then she didn't show. Everybody was concerned. They were trying to call her, and there was no response. Everybody's like, where is she? It was just very strange. It was very, very strange.
Even more strange was when minutes turned to hours, and the ever-reliable Amanda Plass never arrived for her shift at Friendly's. Not long after Amanda fails to show up for work, a frantic 911 call comes into the Chicopee Police Department. The caller is a 22-year-old named Seth Green. And Seth tells dispatchers that when he went to visit his girlfriend Amanda, he stepped into a scene of unimaginable horror.
She was laying on the kitchen floor right when I opened the door. Just in a pool of blood, stabbed to death. Called 911. I was still holding her when I called 911. I mean, there was no doubt that she was already dead. It wasn't even like she needs help. It was, she's dead. I mean, she was throat was slit, multiple stab wounds to the chest, right in the heart.
I was the on-call state police detective for that particular day. I got a call to say that there was a homicide occurred in Chicopee.
Ronald Gibbons, who at the time was a detective with the Massachusetts State Police, raced to the crime scene. What's the scene like? You arrive, what are you taking in?
This is the building itself. The Chicopee police officers had cordoned off this area, had put the yellow tape around it to block anyone from going to the back.
When the first detectives arrived at the scene, Lieutenant Gibbons says Seth was in distress and sitting on the back porch.
He was frantic, he was erratic, he was just a range of emotions.
What was that like for you, to see her on that floor?
It's just something that I would never wish upon anybody. Like, my worst enemy, I wouldn't want to have to go through that. Honestly, it's just horrible.
When you walk in this apartment, you see Amanda Plass lying there on the floor. Describe the position she was in and what you're taking in as you see her.
She's like spread out on her back, and there's blood all around her.
Death by stabbing is very often a personal attack on behalf of the perpetrator. You have to be up on top of somebody when you plunge that knife into them.
It was almost like Amanda talking from the grave. Is it a crime of passion? Is it a crime of revenge? There's a lot of slashes here. This was very violent. It looked like she fought.
I knelt down right next to her. I wanted to, imagine or think that she was, breathing or something. And I literally tried to give her CPR, like blow into her mouth, and it literally blew out of her. She was pretty butchered up, and yeah, it's just horrible.
She's lying on the floor in a pool of blood with multiple wounds, partially dressed, and very dead.
It's around the same time that Amanda's sister Amy Lee receives an unexpected visit from her aunt.
And she told me, you know, your sister's dead. Your sister's been murdered. And I remember just crying instantly. I remember screaming. And my aunt is like, we need to find out who did this. We need to find out right now. And as we're en route to go tell her, my mom's calling me. And she's saying, Amy, what's going on? My mom's begging me to tell her on the phone what's wrong.
So I went outside, and there were the Chicopee detectives and the state, my daughter, my husband, to let me know that she had been stabbed to death.
So in real time, you're learning that your daughter was stabbed to death. How difficult is it to process all of this that's going on in that moment?
Oh my gosh, how am I going to bury this kid? Or what, 19, 20-year-old has a life insurance policy. Where do you get the money? Just that whole process of not knowing how to even comprehend what had happened, but then still knowing that, okay, I need to put my child to rest.
It's something you can never be prepared for.
No, never in a million years.
You see your friend and they're happy, they're vibrant, they're excited for life, and then all of a sudden, they're gone. And it just didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense.
I had this heavy gut feeling that something really bad was gonna happen to Amanda. I was like, oh my God, did I manifest this? Like, did I put that thought out there and it came true?
Nobody could understand why it happened because Amanda was just friends with everybody. I don't remember Amanda having any enemies.
Every single person in her life was a suspect. Everybody.
Any detective or criminologist is going to tell you that our money is on Seth Green, the most recent boyfriend.
My captain is now saying, head to the station. They got a possible suspect. He's down at the station. They're going to interview him. Need you there right now. It's a race against time.
I think my knife might have been at her house.
So you have a knife at her house? That knife was not found. Seth was the perfect suspect.
To truly understand Amanda Plass, all you needed to do was look into her eyes.
You can see her soul, the love that she had for everybody and anybody.
Her eyes changed colors. When she was really happy, her eyes would literally turn green.
What stands out to you when you think about her?
Her spirit, yeah, her energy.
Amanda grew up in Chicopee, once a bustling mill town, now a quiet working-class community known for the rambling Chicopee River.
Chicopee is a small place. Everybody knows everybody.
The neighborhood itself is a very close-knit neighborhood. The houses are pretty adjacent to each other. Very urban residential neighborhood.
How often does it happen that you have a random murder?
A lot of times you have a gang murder, and this was different because this is truly a victim in her own apartment, a young girl, 20 years old, brutally murdered.
Amanda was the middle child, raised by her mom, Michelle. She attended a local high school, but left before graduating and instead earned her GED.
She was a hippie child. I often find her barefooted outside, painting or taking pictures of the neighbor's dog, playing her guitar.
Growing up, we were like best friends. My mom used to dress us up like we were twins. My mom was a single mother for most of our childhood, and we moved around a lot.
I've always raised my children to be, independent, and you get what you earn.
I used to call Amanda the bigger sister. She had a job, an apartment. Her work ethic was nonstop. Amanda was always dancing around and painting and splashing colors everywhere.
Anything that had to do with being artsy, she would make feather earrings.
When you see a sunflower, you think of Amanda. It became her trademark. When she found the music festival scene, that really is where she started to blossom. She's in her early 20s, and she just found herself right before she passed.
A butterfly coming out of a cocoon. Just the brightness. That was her.
On that tragic Friday in Chicopee, Amanda's boyfriend Seth, whom she had only been dating for about a week, tells police he stopped by Amanda's apartment and immediately noticed a broken window.
I pounded on the door for a minute. And then you try going to her apartment door? Yeah, turn the handle and the knots.
I went to her door and let myself in, and she was laid on the floor in a pool of blood.
She got up immediately and called. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Yes, sir.
Seth had only been dating Amanda for the week.
But he said he had moved his things in, and it was a serious relationship.
I've been hanging out every single day for a week now. I'm not even grounds.
And the relationship was moving fast, right?
Yeah, I was moving fast. She had that go-getter attitude and just a fun, caring person.
What were you doing for a living at the time?
I'm a carpenter, but roofing is where the money's at. So roofing was my main go-to usually for the construction field.
Seth tells police he spent the night at Amanda's, left for work around 9 a.m., and returned to find her dead. He also tells investigators he was working on a roof that day and left the job site multiple times to purchase supplies.
What time did you leave to get the materials? I had left like 3 times. It was later in the day. 3 to 4? Like 3 to 4.
Seth says he and Amanda had kind of fallen into a routine. Every day after he finished working, Seth would drive Amanda to her job at Friendly's. However, the day she was murdered, Seth tells detectives that routine was broken because he had to work late.
He was there every day that week to take her to work, but this is the one day that he had to work late. That kind of was suspicious to us.
How important was Seth's timeline?
His timeline is very important. He leaves the job site several times, and he's on his own. So where exactly did he go, or what exactly did he do?
I texted her, I said, "Where are you?" She didn't answer.
My first thought was like, oh, she stayed home. Maybe she couldn't find a ride.
So you weren't like concerned or anything at that point?
No, not at all. I drove her straight to her house, expecting to see her there, waiting for me,
Oh my God, you know. She deserves so much. You give it all to her.
These range of emotions does not add up. He's rising to the occasion of being a suspect.
The interrogators zone in immediately on the fact that Seth Green is a carpenter and a roofer. In other words, he uses sharp objects and utility knives all the time.
Then comes a chilling detail that ratchets up the suspicion on Seth. He tells detectives the knife he used at work, a sharp M-Tech blade, has gone missing.
But I think my knife might have been at her house.
So you have a knife at her house?
Yeah, I think it might be at her house. It might be in my car as well, I'm not sure.
He was missing his M-Tech knife that he didn't take to work that day. That knife was not found. Seth was the perfect suspect.
My girlfriend just got murdered and you're blaming me for it. Dude, are you kidding me?
And now police want to know if the telltale piece of evidence left behind at the crime scene will implicate or exonerate Seth Green. Michelle Penna will never forget the final text message she received from her daughter Amanda.
She sent me a text and said, "Mom, can you give me a ride to work?" And I said, "I can't." And she said, okay, she'd find a ride.
No one could have imagined that just hours later, 20-year-old Amanda Plass would be gone forever.
Homicides happen all the time, but when it happens to you, I would have never thought that my sister was going to be murdered.
What you stumbled upon when you went to Amanda's house, how does that compare to a lot of other homicides you've covered?
In this particular case, there's droplets of blood all around the room, and that's indicative that this was a very, very brutal and harsh fight.
Well, when we were finally able to get into her apartment, they had covered the floor with paper, so we didn't have to see all the blood. So when you're trying to clean out her apartment, as I'm walking across paper to cover my daughter's splattered blood, and then who do you ask to help?
My theory is that the attacker came through the back door. When we found Amanda, she's actually in her work pants, her work clothes. There was no evidence of a sexual assault.
She was found on the kitchen floor, and they do believe she was killed there. So not in a bedroom, not in the living room, and that suggests perhaps an element of surprise.
She just didn't lay down and die. She actually fought back. And when she fought back, underneath her fingernails was possibly DNA, and we're gonna have to match this DNA to someone.
The first person investigators test? Amanda's boyfriend, Seth Green.
I'm going to do a couple tests. We're just going to swipe the inside of your cheek, okay?
The interesting thing, we stepped out of the room, but we still observed him. And he'd cry a little bit and then just wonder why he was there.
I can't believe that. So happy with her. What happened, baby?
He had only been dating her for a week, and he was so caught up that this is the best thing that ever happened to his life.
But detectives also receive information that points to someone other than Seth. Amanda had recently told her family that someone had been sneaking into her apartment.
She said, my apartment got broken into again. And I said, well, what did they take? You need to call the police. And she says, no, Mom, all they took was a glass bowl, like a marijuana bowl. I said, well, you still need to call the police. And she said, no, what am I gonna do, tell them my pot got stolen?
Amanda's friends say she suspected an unidentified male was watching her.
She saw him peeking in her back window of her apartment. The window is actually broken, and we surmise that the person possibly had tried to make it look like a break-in. So on that same window, you end up with a palm print. If we can identify the palm print, we can also identify the person that would have been there that particular day.
But among the most important piece of evidence found at the crime scene, a bloody sneaker print.
That footprint showed a sneaker print in blood. You can actually see the Nike impression in that footprint. We had it measured, we had it analyzed. That was very important because it was a smaller shoe, maybe a female, maybe a male. We were looking for a Nike size 7.5 Air Max shoe.
I remember a couple days after she was murdered, everybody had went to her apartment in Chicopee Center and just held a memorial.
The whole front of her building was just a sea of sunflowers.
That was a really intense emotional time to be in front of the apartment of where she was murdered and just comforting each other, just shocked, not understanding how or why.
And then, a few days after Amanda's murder, there was a funeral.
I just remember it just being beautiful and intense and very heartbreaking. And a lot of sunflowers.
Meanwhile, police aren't giving up on the idea of Amanda's boyfriend Seth as a suspect. Within hours of Amanda's murder, they even go as far as to ask him for the shoes on his feet.
Would you give us permission to look at your shoes?
Yeah, you can take them. I mean, take them off now.
Just put up.
Finally, after almost 15 grueling hours, investigators reach a conclusion. Seth Green is not their killer.
His DNA did not match. His shoe print didn't match. His boots were a size 12. It was too large to be the person at the scene.
Clearly, there's...
I never gave up, but you just think, is this gonna be a cold case? Will I ever know?
That fear of never getting justice for Amanda was fuel for a fire that was now burning inside Michelle.
My mom made it very clear that she wasn't just gonna let the case go cold.
I didn't give up hope because Michelle never gave up hope. She never gave up. She didn't let anybody else either.
Tell me about how, after this time had passed, that you said, I gotta take matters into my own hands.
I was driving home from work and I saw a billboard and underneath it was Lamar and Company. And I said, you know what? Mom ain't playing around no more. I called them and emailed them, and next thing I knew, Amanda's billboard went up.
And that's just the beginning, right? You did flyers.
Balloon releases. I even had cards made up, business cards with the text-a-tip number on it. We attached them to the balloons. When we did the balloon releases, one of the balloons ended up 3 hours away, Cape Cod.
Wow.
It's been 18 months and 5 days since Amanda was murdered, so today I'm hoping with the release of these balloons that somebody will come forward. Somebody knows something that happened that day. It was a busy Friday afternoon. We're just looking for that one missing piece of the puzzle.
She was just in your face. She really was like you would be as a mother. We want to find out what happened to your child, and she was out there. She was gonna find out.
Michelle's a force.
Despite Michelle's efforts to publicize Amanda's case, the investigation continues to languish. Then, a dramatic development. More than a year after the murder, a 911 call comes in that initially stuns police. A man confesses to Amanda's murder.
I like to turn myself in. I live in Plymouth.
Spell your last name.
Do I really have to? I'm turning myself in.
Right, but I have to know what you're turning yourself in for.
For murder.
From where, sir?
From Chicopee. From Amanda Plaza, and I just can't handle it anymore.
Cops track down the caller, but just like hundreds of other promising leads, the confession is a dead end. The caller was impersonating another man trying to get him in trouble. Neither had any involvement in the murder.
They had read it online, facts about the murder, and once you got through the facts, there was no factual basis to the confession. This was a very frustrating investigation.
And then a discovery that blows the investigation wide open.
And I still remember the night. It was probably at 10 o'clock at night.
I get a call from Ronnie Gibbons.
Michelle, you got that whiteboard from the apartment?
A clue that had been hiding in plain sight all along.
I never heard his name.
Had you ever heard Amanda mention something,
Nope.
Dennis?
Never, not once.
Can you spot the clue on this whiteboard?
you guys want me to start?
Nobody could wrap their head around the fact that Amanda was killed to begin with, let alone trying to think of who could do it.
We had a billboard on 391, a huge billboard with this beautiful picture that she took of herself that day she was murdered.
Somebody knew something, and nobody was talking.
I kept saying, there's no way that there's no DNA. There's just no way. There has to be something.
There was a whiteboard way in the back. On the whiteboard, there was wording in it. Dennis was, W-A-Z, here.
Who's done this?
I got goosebumps right now.
So I was on the way to the hospital. They had told me 12 hours before I had her that I was having a boy. And Amanda by Boston was on the radio. As her godmother and I drove to the hospital. And when she was born, the nurse looked at me and said, "It's not a boy." So I named her Amanda after the song by Boston.
I'm gonna take you by surprise and make you realize, Amanda,
She was just always bubbly and fun, and she had this big curly hair, and she just, she was a light.
But on that tragic Friday in August, Amanda's bright light was extinguished when she was found brutally murdered in her apartment.
She was laying on the kitchen floor right when I opened the door. Just in a pool of blood, stabbed to death.
I got the call to say that we have a homicide and respond to the scene. So I actually responded to the scene initially.
People in the neighborhood were worried. Is someone gonna come to my door and kill me?
You don't even think it's real at first, you know? You're numb to it. Then you're like, oh, okay, maybe something's like amiss. Like maybe this isn't true.
Nobody could wrap their head around the fact that Amanda was killed to begin with, let alone trying to think of who could do it.
At the crime scene, police discover a partial palm print on the broken window and a bloody shoe print in the kitchen near Amanda's body. But with lead after lead coming up empty, the investigation is losing momentum.
They interview hundreds of people who knew her, friends, relatives, coworkers, and there is nothing new under the sun. Unless somebody comes forward with new information, this case is going to grow cold.
I think there's this impression sometimes that a murder happens, police will solve it in months. Some cases, they take time, they linger. Was that frustrating for you?
It was very frustrating because, you know, as time goes on, and you have to realize that in 2011, when this occurred, time didn't stop. Investigations didn't stop. Crime didn't stop. So we were working other cases as well.
I was getting nervous that her case was going cold.
Somebody knows something that happened that day. We're just looking for that one missing piece of the puzzle.
Amanda's mother, Michelle, takes matters into her own hands, organizing benefits, balloon releases. She even got a massive billboard with Amanda's picture put up on the highway.
I wanted people driving down the highway and seeing my daughter's face. Somebody knew something, and nobody was talking.
But then, a little more than a year after the murder, the story takes a strange turn. Rumors are swirling in Chicopee about graphic crime scene photos seen at a high school football game.
New details on the Chicopee police officers accused of taking pictures of murder victim Amanda Plass's body.
It was June 10th of 2013. I will never forget. There was a news conference. It was the then mayor who was appointing a new chief of police and said that they were investigating a crime scene photo leak by 2 of the Chicopee police officers.
My heart just sank. What do you mean police officers were taking pictures of the crime scene and sharing them?
2 Chicopee police officers who had been assigned to protect the crime scene took photos of Amanda's body with their personal phones And adding insult to injury, they forwarded the pictures to other officers, and it was shown to coaches at a high school football game.
Everyone, the whole newsroom was, how could anyone do this? How could an officer do this?
Michelle sued the police department and the city, claiming emotional abuse suffered at the hands of the Chicopee PD.
They sued him for $10 million. I sued the city, the police department. I sued them all. It wasn't about the money. It was about proving a point.
An internal affairs investigation called the behavior an affront to the professionalism otherwise demonstrated by Chicopee and the state investigators in this case. The officers responsible were disciplined by the police department.
They were there to protect the scene, and at my daughter's most vulnerable moments, you disrespect her in the worst way ever and think that's okay. I was mad.
At the same time Michelle's dealing with the photo controversy, she's campaigning tirelessly to keep Amanda's murder case front and center. What was it like for you to have to handle questions about that controversy, while at the same time, what you're really focused on is finding your daughter's killer?
Yeah, and I think that's what's the hard part of it all. I didn't want the controversy to overshadow the fact that we still did not have justice for Amanda. We were still looking and begging for that end to be closed.
Investigators working on Amanda's case had no involvement in the alleged scandal. Frustrated by the lack of progress, they go back to square one, reviewing everything from scratch.
We would try to keep saying, what did we miss? What did we miss? What did we miss?
And then a breakthrough. While reviewing photos of the crime scene, investigators spot a potentially critical clue that had been overlooked, hiding in plain sight in Amanda's bedroom.
We come upon, in a scene where the table is at, there was a whiteboard way in the back. On the whiteboard, there was wording in it, Dennis was, W-A-Z, here, 8/11/11.
The grisly murder took place in the kitchen, but the whiteboard was in Amanda's bedroom, which appeared undisturbed, and they missed the clue.
I get a call from Ronnie Gibbons, and it was like 9:45 at night.
Michelle, you got that whiteboard from the apartment?
I said, yeah, it's in the closet. He said, I'll be over in 5 minutes, I gotta grab it.
After more than 2 years, investigators finally had a name. But the answer to the question, who is Dennis, only brings more mystery. This Dennis was here on this whiteboard. This is a huge clue for your case.
This is a big clue.
Why?
Because Dennis' name had never come up in the investigation.
Now we're scrolling through Amanda's Facebook going, who's Dennis?
She didn't know. Amy Lay didn't know.
Her friends were calling me going, Dennis. Nobody knew who Dennis was.
Amanda's friend Desiree said, through force of sheer will, you kept her name out there. How difficult was that?
It was difficult. It takes a toll. And there are some nights where you just, again, you don't want to be that mom. But then something else would pop up and you'd be like, okay, let me call Trooper Gibbons. It was tough. It was very tough.
I had Michelle that was calling me at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, mad and angry. You gotta do something. You gotta do something.
There was never a time where Ronnie did not show up at my house without a smile on his face. The only side that I saw was the compassionate side, the side that said, I'm here to the end.
It was a Wednesday night in October, more than 2 years after the murder, when Detective Gibbons was the one making a late-night phone call to Michelle.
It was October 30th, 2013, 9:45 at night. I get a call from Ronnie Gibbons. Hey, you still got that whiteboard from Amanda's apartment? I said, yeah, it's in the closet. He said, I'll be over in 5 minutes, I gotta grab it.
The discovery of a name hiding in plain sight on a whiteboard in Amanda's apartment kickstarts an investigation that, frankly, had been on life support. Now the question everyone is asking, who's Dennis?
No one knew Dennis.
Had you ever heard Amanda mention someone named Dennis?
Never, not once.
I never heard his name.
The detectives told me right when they found it, asking me if I knew the name. Like, no idea.
It is such a long shot, but they zone in on that and they decide they need to find out who Dennis is.
One of the things that was missing was her cell phone. We went back to her cell phone records. We came out that there was phone calls for a number. They came back to a Dennis Rosa Roman. I immediately recognized the name because about a year before, I had actually arrested Dennis Rosa Roman.
Gibbons had arrested Rosa Roman on a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct. Rosa Roman pled guilty and paid a fine. But now Gibbons knew exactly who Dennis Rosa Roman was. The question, was this the same Dennis whose name was on that whiteboard?
You have anything further you want to tell us?
A possible answer could lie in one of the police interviews with Amanda's ex-boyfriend, Jesse.
While Jesse was still dating Amanda, Amanda had told him that she thinks her apartment had been broken into while she was at work.
She thought it was some kid that she had met and bought weed off of.
Jesse described him as being shorter. Jesse's probably like 5'10", 6 feet.
He's got to live like somewhere within like a 2-second walk from there. I remember I used to see him walking around like that area all the time.
Jesse said Amanda told him she had hung out with the person once before, but he had no idea where. Now Detective Gibbons is wondering if the man Jesse had been describing in that interview could have been Dennis Rosa Roman. Amanda lives about a half a block away from this park. She used to hang out here, right?
Yeah, this is like a hangout for the neighborhood. And we learned later on, this is kind of like where Dennis would hang out during the daytime because he just didn't work.
So they might have come across each other in this park just in passing in the neighborhood.
Exactly, exactly.
In the time since Amanda's murder, Dennis Rosa Roman had moved from Chicopee to nearby Westfield, Massachusetts. Gibbons decides to pay him a visit. So now we're headed to Westfield, Massachusetts. Why is that significant?
That's very significant because once we found Dennis was here on the whiteboard and his number is on the phone, we want to locate Dennis.
What's your expectation going there? What are you trying to achieve?
The plan was to knock on his door and talk to him, just like we had talked to over 50 other people in the case, as well as to get his shoe size, as well as to get his DNA. I go to the apartment, ring the doorbell, no answer, and next thing you know, I see from a side alleyway that's between the building, Dennis come out.
And what happens next?
Beautiful timing, but here he is, he comes right around the corner.
Just walking right to you.
Walking right to us. So I stop him and then say, hey Dennis, you got a moment? We want to talk to you about Chicopee. We want to talk about a girl named Amanda Plass.
Yeah.
His first thing is, he kind of chuckles, he says, oh no, I don't go to Chicopee, it's too dangerous there. And I say, well, how about this girl Amanda Plass? And he says, I don't know Amanda at all. So I know that from the phone records, yes, he does know Amanda Plass.
In fact, Gibbons knew from those phone records that there were 9 calls between Dennis and Amanda. Dennis had called Amanda 5 times just a month before the murder.
I said, hey, can we go to the police station? He said, no, I got something I got to do. I noticed him light up a cigarette, and he's smoking on a cigarette. And now I'm thinking, wow, maybe I can get DNA off this cigarette that he's smoking.
Although Gibbons had arrested Rosa Roman a year prior, because he had never been convicted of a felony, his DNA was never entered into the national database. Gibbons says Rosa Roman didn't want to talk to him that day and began to walk away, but not before he tossed the cigarette he was smoking on the sidewalk.
Meanwhile, I told my partners, go to my car, get a paper bag, give me some rubber gloves. Dennis sees that because he keeps looking back. My partners come back with rubber gloves, he sees me put them on, he sees that paper bag, he sees me reach down and put that inside that bag.
Two days later, Dennis Rosa Roman is sitting in an interview room at the Westfield Police Department.
So your first name is Dennis, right?
Yes, D-E-N-N-I-S.
engaging in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse with investigators.
I don't feel right doing this at all, but I have to. You don't even understand. I'm trying to save my life here.
Outside his home, Dennis Rosa Roman appears to be acting cool and calm with detectives, until he sees them pick up his cigarette butt off the street. Clearly he's concerned, because not long after they leave, he calls Lieutenant Ronald Gibbons.
After seeing me take that cigarette butt, he's now blowing my phone up. Hey, you and I gotta talk.
You say you really need to talk to today. Yeah, like seriously. Where do you guys want me to start?
Where they want him to start when they meet with the cameras rolling is very simple. Does he know Amanda Plass?
You knew her. I met her. I didn't know her that long, but I knew her of her. You know her first name? Amanda.
How much before did you meet her that she passed?
Say like a week or two.
Okay.
2 weeks the most.
So you know her about a week or two before she got killed?
Yeah.
He didn't know Amanda at all. And then he comes around to say that, okay, I did know Amanda, but I would sell her weed.
I met her by family dollar in Tedeschi and Chicopee.
Okay.
You know where that's at? So I seen her, she asked me if I could get some blood.
How many times previously did you get weed for her?
It's only been like 3 times, the most.
You ever been to her apartment?
Like up the stairs, and that's about it. I've never stepped in her house. I've never seen the inside of her house.
As Dennis is talking, he notices detectives checking out his sneakers.
Like my shoes?
Yeah, Nikes.
Air Maxes.
What he wears into the station that particular day is this black Air Max shoe. And we took the aha moment to say, you know what, can you take off your shoe and I'm gonna take a picture of your shoe.
Oh, my feet stink, I'm sorry.
Because the crime scene itself had an imprint in blood.
The print that you found on the scene, what size was that?
That was a size 7.5 Nike shoe.
And what size is the shoe that we're looking at?
This is a size 7.5 Nike shoe.
Remember, detectives have had no luck matching those bloody shoe prints to previous suspects. So according to Gibbons, this is potentially damning if confirmed, but still not as conclusive as a DNA match to what was found under Amanda's fingernails. So Gibbons says they get Rosa Roman to agree to a DNA mouth swab.
Just, put your mouth, just gonna rub that inside your lip. And so do the other side.
Gibbons says he wants Rosa Roman directly tested in case that cigarette butt sample might somehow be contaminated.
Doing great. Under your tongue.
There's a really big difference between you thinking, hey, I think we got our guy, and you lining it up with the evidence.
This is a matter of facts.
So the day that this all happened, what happened that day?
So, Rosa Roman starts telling detectives his version of what happened the day Amanda was killed.
I brought her some weed.
Did she call you that day? Or?
Yeah, she called me that day. She said, yo, can you give me a dime bag? She was not the one that came to the door. The guy opened the door, he just said, yo, give me that, and that's it. And I went about my way.
What Dennis says is that this other guy was at the apartment.
I didn't bother saying anything to the guy. The guy looked suspect, he looked suspicious.
He answers detectives' questions about what he says the man looked like.
I'm 6 feet, so what do you think?
5'10", maybe.
Are you taller than you?
Taller than me, obviously, yeah. He has dirty blondish hair.
Would you say white?
Yeah, he's white. Say he weighed about 170, 190 the most, almost 200 pounds.
And goes on to describe what he claims he heard while outside the apartment.
I'm listening to this guy's I want my money. I didn't give you this for no reason. Why would you do this to me?
That was the guy's voice?
Yeah.
You're asking him questions about the description of the man who made these comments from inside the apartment. Why are you asking him about that?
Because I want to lock him into a story. Will you be consistent with that story, or you go on another tangent.
So the guy said something to her like, I want my money, I didn't do this, I want my money.
I didn't do this for nothing.
For nothing?
Right.
Did you hear her voice?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear nothing.
Rosa Roman is consistent. Even though Gibbons says he is convinced Rosa Roman is making up his story.
That's all about everything I know, and I can't say no more, no less. You know what I'm saying? Truly, I'm sorry, guys. I'm actually helping you guys. You know what I'm saying?
You're very helpful.
Yeah,
Because you know what? Not too many people have told us that they saw the guy there, you know? So that you're aces with me, you know?
I didn't have enough to arrest him at this point. I had to allow him to leave.
Thank you very much.
One interview ends, but Rosa Roman isn't done answering questions. 2 days later,
This picture is inside her apartment. You ever seen this room?
it's a photo of that whiteboard. What will Rosa Roman have to say when he's shown his name is on it?
And see right here, it says Dennis was here. Dennis, thank you very much for coming in.
Fine, dude.
And you've been very cooperative with us, and we appreciate that.
Dennis Rosa Roman agrees to another interview.
I wish I knew more to help you guys.
Repeating the story detectives say they don't believe, that he never entered Amanda Plass's apartment the day of her murder after he claims some man answered her door.
I'm gonna give her some lead. It's like, well, she's busy right now, and I give it to him, he shuts the door dumb hard in my face, and that's it. It's like, okay, this guy's mad, and I'm about to leave, like, and I left. You know what I'm saying?
But Rosa Roman says that was long enough for the man to recognize him.
I feel like this guy's just gonna run into me one day and just like try to say something to me or hurt me or something, and that's when I'm gonna peel my ass to the police station. Like,
Yeah, is that because he saw you that day?
like this guy knows what I look like.
But what Rosa Roman doesn't know is that Gibbons is expecting critical evidence to the case to come back at any moment. The results from his DNA swab.
You were asking about this picture, right?
Yeah. I want to see.
So before that happens, Gibbons confronts Rosa Roman for the first time about that all-important whiteboard where it says Dennis was here.
This picture is inside her apartment. You ever seen this room?
First time I'm seeing it.
We said, first time I'm seeing it. And then, well, how about this? This whiteboard that's in the back room.
And see right here, it says Dennis was here.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I wrote my name on that.
You wrote your name on that?
Yeah. I remember that. I wrote my name on that.
So he's admitting to you that that's his name on the whiteboard.
You've told me all this time you've never been in an apartment, and now I got you in there.
So you signed Dennis was here.
Right.
You didn't put the date.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I don't even know why that's there. I don't.
Yeah. But you remember this dry erase board?
Yeah, I do remember.
Where was the dry erase board?
That was in the back of, the door right when you come in.
Yeah.
It was right there, and
As he is confronted with the evidence, he shapeshifts. He manages to keep changing his story to try to ameliorate the facts in front of him. There are certain kind of people who can make up things on the fly and change their narrative based on the clues that are being given to them.
You say you never been inside her place.
well, I have been in her house, but like, I just don't want people to like look at me like if I'm a murderer.
So now this is the first time that he actually puts himself in the apartment.
But you went in the apartment. How many other times have you been inside the apartment?
Twice. 2 times, that's it.
And what were they for?
To bring her weed and smoke the bone and sign this.
So the room that you were in were that back room,
the kitchen, and the back room, that's about it.
The back room was where the whiteboard was.
So what are you putting together at this point?
I'm putting together at this point that he, in fact, had not only been in that back room, he'd also been in the kitchen at some point where the crime occurred.
Remember, Amanda had told friends she suspected someone had broken into her apartment, and Dennis says she had asked him about that.
You said that Amanda approached you about somebody breaking into her place?
Yeah. She asked me, like, yo, somebody came into my house, do you guys know? And I was like, well, I really don't know, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Now Gibbons suspects that someone was Rosa Roman. Then, a few minutes later, a huge development. The detectives get called to leave the interrogation room.
How much longer is this going to take? 5 minutes. All right.
Outside, they get the news the DNA results are in. Rosa Roman is a match for what was found under Amanda's fingernails. They soon drop that bombshell on him directly.
The DNA that was found under her fingernails connects you to her. You know what? It doesn't just get there.
Dennis is now thinking in his mind, how do I get out of this?
And what he tells them next totally flips the story on its head. He now claims he tried to save Amanda.
I know the murderer, and I tried to save her life.
What's he trying to do here?
He's trying to create a situation of why we have his DNA, why his DNA is possibly on her.
He's casting himself almost as the hero in this.
Yes, he is.
Well, why don't you tell us everything that happened in the apartment?
I know the murderer. That's all I know. I can't give you no more. I'm sorry. That's
You
it.
said he tried.
I want a lawyer.
But
I want a lawyer.
Okay.
Gibbons says asking for a lawyer stops the interrogation room recording immediately. So you don't see the scuffle that he says breaks out when detectives handcuff Rosa Roman and place him under arrest.
You don't have to be aggressive with me, dude. You didn't have to be that aggressive.
And then they have him booked. He's charged with first-degree murder. This is over 2 years after Amanda was killed. They tell you, we are making an arrest.
Yep.
What did you think?
Finally. Finally. You know, you always wonder why. Why?
Dennis, though, is admitting nothing.
What are you guys trying to do? Pin me for this murder, too? My DNA may be on her body, my DNA may be at the house, but you guys really don't know what went down.
But after he's transported from the Westfield Police Department to Chicopee, he's about to explain.
He demanded to speak to myself and Watson again. So he didn't come to the door, you actually went inside?
I went inside, I barged in.
Was the door open?
The door wasn't locked.
As Rosa Roman tells them the newest version of his story, he now claims when he hears the commotion inside Amanda's apartment, he rushes in and fights the man he says was trying to kill her.
What do you see when you get to the kitchen?
I see the guy on top of her.
When you say he was on top of her, where was she at?
She was on the floor.
What are you doing?
I'm tussling with the guy, trying to get the knife out of his hand, and he's just like thrusting it forward towards me, and I'm like trying to back up, and I try to like grab Amanda, and she scratched me. Yeah, she got some skin off of me, but that's because I was trying to save her.
That's right. Rosa Roman now claims he tried to save Amanda's life. This is the key to his new story. His explanation for why his DNA is under Amanda's fingernails, even though he says he didn't kill her.
And after that, me and him were tussling, and the guy punches me in the jaw, and I run out the door.
And that's what his story was, that this guy is now following him around town. He's now being threatened by this guy because this guy doesn't want the truth to come out. What did he tell you?
Yo, you snitch on me, I'm gonna kill you. Just like that. Like, I know I killed her, and that's it. It's done.
But now, Rosa Roman has to tell that story in court.
The trial of the man accused of killing 20-year-old Amanda Plass is getting underway today in Springfield.
And he says he can identify who Amanda's killer is.
Amanda Plass's parents sat hand in hand with Justice for Amanda bracelets on as they waited for the murder trial of their 20-year-old daughter to begin.
I think I broke down more so in the courtroom, just looking at him.
It's kind of hard to describe how it felt to see him for the first time. It's like a fever dream. Like, is this really happening? But my mind was not on him. My mind is on my sister.
When I was selected for the jury, it was surreal. It was definitely a bit of a, oh my God, what am I in for? The home that Amanda lived in was 2 houses from where my mother grew up and my grandmother lived. It just became very personal.
Evidence in this case will show that on Friday, August 26, 2011, Amanda Plass was brutally murdered in her home Miss Class was getting ready to go to work when the defendant came into her apartment while she was getting ready and stabbed her 6 times.
Prosecutors lay out their case against Dennis Rosa Roman. There are the bloody footprints in his shoe size, his palm print on the broken window, and his DNA under Amanda's fingernails. They argue that Dennis, and only Dennis, committed this crime.
1 set of bloody footprints. 1 major male DNA profile underneath both her right hand and left hand fingernails. 1 killer, 1 defendant.
They literally took us from A to B to C to D. They laid out every single piece of evidence. They correlated every piece of evidence to him.
In addition to the physical evidence, prosecutors also used Dennis's own words against him.
And see right here, it says Dennis was here. Oh yeah, I do remember that. I wrote my name on that.
Each time he's confronted with evidence, he changes his story to fit the evidence.
I think it was important for them to see the 3 interviews because it showed Dennis as agreeing to some of the facts, denying some of the facts, and then coming around and changing his stories repeatedly.
But while the prosecution says the evidence proves Dennis's guilt, the defense argues that it isn't what it seems.
He was in her apartment when Amanda Class was killed. He did not do it, but he knows the guy who did it.
The last story he told was that he was there with another man and he saw the other man kill Amanda, but he will never give the name because he was afraid the killer would kill his family.
And he tells you how many times he's afraid for himself, he's afraid for his family. Charge me, I'm not giving up his name. My name pops up, meaning if they capture him and my name pops up, he's gonna kill me.
Dennis's version of events kept changing over those 3 police interviews. In his final one, Dennis had a new detail for detectives, that the alleged killer was none other than his own drug dealer.
Your dealer went to her house?
Yeah.
Your dealer?
My dealer.
The 2 of you walk in the house together?
Yeah.
He had said he was there because he had given Amanda pot and she had not paid. So he said that the drug dealer killed Amanda and he saw it.
I'm like, yo, why are you doing this? I'm gonna get you your money. And I try to grab her and she like grabs my arm and he's just keep going and going and going and going.
What do you mean he's going and going? He's stabbing her?
Keep continuously stabbing her and she just collapsed on the floor after I separated her.
Think she was dead?
I know she was dead. I was just thinking to myself, like, how do I get myself out of this?
The defense strategy was basically that the police should look further.
They continually brought up other people to say, well, it could have been them, or it was them, or it was this, or just to try to have a sense of doubt.
After 8 days of testimony, the fate of Dennis Rosa Roman now rests with the jury.
When we retired to the jury room to deliberate, we took a photo of Amanda. It was a close-up of her face with her smile, and we hung that in the jury room just so we could remember why we were there and what this was all about.
It was hard. You don't ever want to think of your best friend going through something that awful. And that was her final moments. Yeah. And then bringing that into the trial, it was just...
It's terrible.
It's terrible. To this day, it's just... there's no words.
After only 5 hours of deliberation, the jury reaches a verdict.
We were sitting in the DA's office in the break room, and next thing you know, you hear running down the hall that the jury came back.
Breaking news this hour, a guilty verdict today in the Amanda Plass murder trial.
The jury today found Dennis Rosa Roman guilty of first-degree murder.
We had a couple jurors who weren't quite sure. One of them wanted to review a bunch of evidence again, and his commentary the whole time was, look at him, he's lying, he keeps changing his answers. And we very quickly came to a unanimous decision that Dennis was guilty.
When that moment you felt?
Relief, definite relief. Now I can put an end to this chapter.
Despite a guilty verdict, there's still the unanswered question hanging over this case. And that's, why did Dennis Rosa Roman kill Amanda Plass in the first place? Dennis Rosa Roman has been found guilty of the murder of Amanda Plass. But the one mystery that still remains is motive.
I don't know why. There's only one person who knows why. And he never spoke, so that's definitely the hardest of it. There wasn't a bad bone in that child's body. She never did anything wrong to anybody.
Lieutenant Gibbons has developed his own theory as to why he believes Dennis Rosa Roman murdered Amanda. He says he learned during the investigation that there was a bag of marijuana inside Amanda's apartment left behind by someone else. Gibbons says investigators were never able to find that bag and suspects Dennis broke in looking to steal it.
Dennis is a low-level dealer in the neighborhood. My theory is that he wanted to steal that weed that was in the apartment, and Amanda was a victim of circumstances that she happened to be there when he arrived.
Before Rosa Roman is sentenced, Amanda's mother, surrounded by family, tearfully addresses the court.
On August 26, 2011, my world was forever changed. My pain does not end here, but my healing begins.
I think at that point, it was finally my time to tell him, you took something precious from this world, and I hope you never see the light of day again.
There is no amount of time that will ever bring Amanda back. I would like to ask the court to hand out the highest sentence possible of life without parole.
It's the justice Michelle Pena has spent more than 5 years fighting for.
Court is hereby sentence you to the Massachusetts Correctional Institution in Cedar Junction for the term of your natural life without the possibility of parole.
As you look at him and you see that he's getting life without parole, what emotions are going through you at that time?
It was a relief knowing that we were finally at another closing point.
Did you feel like justice had been served?
No, justice will never be served because she's dead and he's not.
As for those officers who snapped those photos of Amanda's body at her most vulnerable moment, the mayor of Chicopee released a written apology. Michelle also reached a resolution in the lawsuit she filed.
Plass's family sued the city of Chicopee and the police department. The lawsuit was settled for $110,000.
Michelle continued her fight and helped pass Amanda's Law.
The bill bans first responders from taking and sharing unauthorized pictures of crime victims.
For an officer to want, in that moment, to take a picture of a scene like that, it makes my stomach turn. My mom wanted to make it known that you're never doing that again.
Today, Michelle keeps Amanda's memory alive by sharing her story with college students.
This is about the path that I have taken, the path that has helped me to my healing process. I want people to know that the grief never goes away, but dealing with it or trying to deal with it or put a Band-Aid on it enough to get you through every day is what you have to do.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Oh, these are great. That's her and Brandon. Brandon is my son. See just how the happiness on his face and her big smile. I have always said that Amanda passing kind of saved my life because I knew that I wanted to make her proud. She really helped me become the woman who I am today.
She was just a very kind person and wanted to help the world be better, and that's just something I hope everyone can try to do, you know.
Do you feel like she's with you now?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
If you could have one more minute with her, one more second to say something to her, what would you say?
What she always said and what she always did. Keep your face to the sun and never look back at your shadows, just like her precious sunflowers.
Dennis Rosa Roman appealed his conviction, but it was denied. And David, even though he was sentenced to life without parole, there's still a chance he could walk free one day as early as 2028.
A Massachusetts court has ruled that it's unconstitutional to sentence offenders under the age of 21 to life without parole. Rosa Roman was 20 at the time of Amanda's murder. Her family tells 2020 they plan to fight this new ruling. That's our program for tonight. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at
The human psyche is a complex tapestry woven with threads of ambition, love, loss, and sometimes chilling darkness. As a criminal psychologist and a novelist who delves into the labyrinthine corridors of motive and method, I find that the most compelling narratives often emerge from the collision of ordinary lives with extraordinary circumstances. We see lives that appear serene, built on solid foundations of family, success, and community, suddenly fractured by events that defy comprehension. The pursuit of justice, then, becomes not merely an investigation into a crime, but a profound exploration of human nature itself. From the quiet corners of seemingly idyllic towns to the bustling front lines of public media, the truth often lies concealed beneath layers of performance, grief, and a desperation. These are stories that remind us that evil can wear many faces, and that the brightest lights of goodness, the dedication of investigators, the resilience of victims' families, and the unwavering pursuit of truth can ultimately prevail. Our journey begins in Utah with the story of Corey Richens, a woman whose narrative became a stark study in duality, a tale of a grieving widow who also stood accused of murder. The widow's tale and the shadow of suspicion. The scene opens with a tender moment. Corey Richens, poised and articulate, is speaking about her book, Are You With Me?, a work designed to help children navigate the profound grief of losing a loved one. It's a narrative born from her own devastating experience, the unexpected death of her husband, Eric, at the age of 39, leaving her with 3 young sons. She speaks of the struggle to cope, the hardest nights, and the search for solace. Her story, presented publicly, is one of profound loss and a mother's effort to shield her children from the harsh realities of death. Joining us now is author of Are You With Me?, Corey Richens, the interviewer. Begins. And Corey, I want to start with your story. Corey recounts the tragedy. My husband passed away unexpectedly last year. He was 39. It completely took us all by shock. She details their 3 sons, aged 10, 9, and 6, and the raw grief that followed. The transition from processing death to writing a book is presented as a natural, empathetic response to her children's pain. I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through and trying to find something that we could use to cope at night. She explains, the book, she says, was intended to fill that void, a way to read to her children at night, a story that captured the essence of presence, even in absence. The public, watching these interviews, saw a bereaved young woman, tragically widowed. The narrative presented was one of profound loss, emphasizing that while Dad is still here, it's just in a different way. The book itself is a testament to this sentiment, with passages from the child's perspective, wondering if their father saw them score a goal, and then shifting to the father's voice assuring them, yes, I am with you. I yelled and clapped as loud as I could, just like always. Corey dedicates the book to my amazing husband and a wonderful father, accompanied by a drawing of their family of 5. It painted a picture of resilience and enduring love. However, beneath this narrative of grief and healing, a far more complex and sinister reality was beginning to unfold, a story that would involve intense scrutiny, forensic investigation, and a deep dive into the psychological underpinnings of motive. The initial call to emergency services, a frantic plea in the early hours of a seemingly ordinary morning, painted a different picture. It was 3:37 in the morning when Corey Richens made the 911 call, her voice strained with panic, reporting her husband, Eric, was not breathing and was cold to the touch. The dispatcher's calm instructions to count compressions. The arrival of officers, paramedics, and firefighters, all captured on body-worn cameras, depicted a scene of life or death struggle. Inside the bedroom, the scene was grim. Eric Richens lay on his back, unresponsive, his body cold, his pulse absent. A CPR machine word. Rhythmically, a desperate soundtrack to a losing battle. Law enforcement. Officers, trained to observe and document, began their work attempting to make sense of the unfolding tragedy. Corey, visibly distressed, recounted the events of the preceding evening. She mentioned they had shared a cocktail around 9 o'clock, celebrating a significant financial win for her real estate business. She also noted that her son had been experiencing night terrors, and she had slept with him, only returning to her own bed later. When asked about seeing Eric alert, she confirmed the 9 o'clock drink. The details, seemingly innocuous, would later be meticulously examined for inconsistencies. Her children, she said, were asleep in a separate room, 2 of them awake. Disturbed by the commotion, their young ears pressed against the door. The request to call her mother, Lisa Darden, for support was met with understanding. The call itself was brief, urgent. "Mom, you need to come up." "Here," I said. "Something's happened." She said, "Eric." Detectives began their questioning. Did Eric have any medical conditions? Corey mentioned Lyme disease, but quickly added uncertainty about its direct relevance. Did he have heart problems? She recalled him sometimes taking a gummy to sleep, but was unsure if he had taken one that night. The mention of a gummy, potentially a THC edible, triggered further inquiry into illicit drug use. Corey denied any history of such use. Lisa Darden arrived to find not just a grieving daughter, but a scene swarming with law enforcement. The initial shock was profound. "I went running through the house to get to Corey," she recounted, "and it was just devastating." She was in total shock. Her concern extended not only to her daughter, but also to her grandsons, who were confused and quiet, aware only that something significant and upsetting was happening. As paramedics worked, a surprising detail emerged: blood. Not just a trickle, but an amount that seemed unusual to the responding EMTs, particularly given the lack of apparent trauma. A little bit coming out as soon as we start doing compressions, one noted, followed by another's observation. "There's a lot of blood for no reason." This detail, coupled with Eric's young age, quickly shifted the focus from natural causes. An aneurysm, a sudden rupture, was the initial hypothesis offered to the family, a way to explain the inexplicable death of an athletic 39-year-old man. Eric's sister, Katie, arrived, and her raw, guttural screams of pain, captured on body cam footage, underscored the depth of the family's devastation. She was led away, struggling to breathe, her world shattered by the loss of a brother she had spoken to just hours before. At 3:58 in the morning, Eric Richens was officially declared dead, with indications he may have been deceased for some time prior to the emergency services arrival. The stage was set for a formal investigation. The county coroner's office, obligated to investigate any unexpected death, would proceed. An autopsy was certain, especially given Eric's age and the mysterious circumstances. This was not just the end of a life, it was the beginning of a mystery that would unravel over years. The night of Eric's death, Corey says, was marked by celebration. She and Eric were toasting her ambitious real estate acquisition, a multi-million-dollar mansion in Midway, Utah, intended for renovation and resale. This deal represented a significant milestone for Corey, a culmination of a dream born. From her childhood, working in cleaning services for the affluent, a dream to rise above and own such properties herself. It was a moment of triumph, of personal validation. Corey's own trajectory was one of ambition and upward mobility. Growing up in a family that moved frequently due to her parents' construction work, she experienced neither extreme poverty nor wealth. However, settling in Heber City, Utah, during her junior high years, she found a strong sense of belonging among friends. She was described as a tough cookie, someone who fiercely defended her circle. Her relationship with Eric Richens began when she worked at a Home Depot in Park City. Eric, a stonemason with his own business, became a frequent customer. Sparks flew, and an instant chemistry was noted. He was significantly older, but Corey was captivated. Eric himself hailed from Bountiful, Utah, growing up on a cattle ranch. He was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, undertaking a 2-year mission to Mexico City. His stonemasonry business, C&E Masonry, grew into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. He was described as dynamic, working hard but also playing hard, enjoying ATVs, camping, hunting, and big game trophy excursions. Corey and Eric married in a backyard ceremony. As Corey prepared to walk down the aisle, Eric's mother presented her with a prenup. It stipulated that the stonemasonry business remained Eric's, and Corey would only benefit from it in the event of his death during their marriage. Corey, though distraught, signed it, driven by her love for Eric. It was known that parts of Eric's family were not entirely supportive of Corey. A difficult start that, once navigated, led to a wedding and eventually 3 sons born within 4 years. Corey, the planner, had a clear vision for her family and her role as a mother, dedicating herself entirely to her boys. Eric was a devoted father, actively involved in their lives, coaching their soccer teams, and cherishing moments of simple joy, like giggling while watching his son play soccer. Their lives, marked by thriving businesses and apparent financial success, included trips, cruises, and fine dining. Yet, while Eric focused on his masonry, Corey harbored aspirations beyond homemaking. She launched K. Richlands Realty in 2019, her home flipping venture. By 2021, she was managing 15 renovation projects, her business expanding rapidly. To the outside world, they presented the image of an all-American family, a beautiful home, thriving businesses, happy children. The illusion of perfection, however, was about to shatter. The narrative that Eric's devoted father provided for his children was about to be challenged by the stark realities facing his grieving widow. The morning after Eric's death, a contentious argument erupted between Corey and Eric's sister, Amy. The dispute centered around Eric's will, stored in a safe. Corey's insistence on accessing it, coupled with the arrival of a locksmith, escalated the confrontation. Amy revealed a critical piece of information. Eric had secretly revised his trust and will, largely cutting Corey out. The exchange became heated, with Amy alleging Corey punched her, leading to Corey's arrest and subsequent plea of no contest to assault. The animosity between the families was immediate and palpable, evident even at Eric's funeral, where a visible divide separated Corey and Eric's family. The funeral itself, while grand with a lavish casket, was described as uncomfortable, marked by a stark lack of interaction between the grieving parties. As months passed, Corey filed a civil lawsuit against Eric's sister Katie, contesting the trust. Amidst this legal and familial turmoil, Corey focused on her role as a single mother and businesswoman, emphasizing the importance of routine in coping with grief. It was during this period, seeking a resource to help her children process their loss, that she found nothing on the market. This led to her decision to write Are You With Me?, a book she self-published with the help of a ghostwriter. Her public appearances to promote the book were met with sympathy and admiration. She spoke on local radio and TV stations, sharing her personal journey and the book's purpose. The narrative was compelling, a grieving widow finding strength through writing for her children. However, the media attention inadvertently opened the door to darker revelations. An anonymous email arrived at the station, blunt and accusatory. "You know, she killed her husband." This chilling message signaled that authorities, who had been quietly investigating the circumstances of Eric's death, were closing in. The initial hypothesis of an aneurysm, suggested by an EMT at the scene, had quickly given way to a more disturbing reality. The autopsy report delivered a stunning verdict: death by drug intoxication, specifically fentanyl. 5 times. A lethal dosage was found in Eric's system. The family was baffled. Eric, they insisted, did not do drugs. Corey echoed this sentiment. The autopsy also revealed the fentanyl was not medical grade, implying street drugs. This report galvanized a criminal investigation. Was Eric's death an accidental overdose or something far more sinister? Police obtained a search warrant for the Richens' home, seizing electronics and searching for any trace of illegal drugs. They found none. Yet, the investigation was intensifying. As Corey spoke with the chief medical examiner, asking questions about the toxicology report, she inquired about acetylfentanyl, a variant of illicitly manufactured fentanyl. The medical examiner confirmed it was synthesized by drug cartels, not pharmaceutical companies. This conversation, while framed as a grieving widow seeking understanding, would later be viewed through a different lens by investigators. The Richens family, skeptical from the start, voiced their concerns about the toxicology report, reiterating Eric's lack of drug use. They harbored suspicions that Corey played a role. Their suspicions were fueled by discoveries made by a private investigator they hired. Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against their home, which Eric solely owned. Without his knowledge, this revelation, discovered in 2020, caused Eric to change his trust, ostensibly to protect his children. The deception about finances, even with marital counseling and no separation, created a deep rift and eroded trust. The investigators also uncovered Corey's precarious financial situation. By the time of Eric's death, she was allegedly millions of dollars in debt, possibly funneling money into her struggling businesses. The Midway mansion, purchased for nearly $3 million, was financed through high-interest, risky hard money loans and eventually fell into foreclosure. Her financial strain extended to others, including her best friend, Chelsea Barney, who allegedly lost her entire savings of $45,000 for a down payment on her first home, as the deed was never properly filed, leading to foreclosure and eviction. Taryn and Alec Wright also filed a lawsuit claiming they discovered mold and water damage in a home Corey sold them, leading to illness and financial ruin. After their home also went into foreclosure, the allegations of financial crimes were compounded by disturbing claims from Eric's family. They alleged that Eric had become ill on a trip to Greece in 2019, suspecting Corey had tried to poison him. He had been on medication for Lyme disease, which prohibited alcohol. He reportedly tasted alcohol in his drink and fell ill, later confiding in his sister, Katie, his suspicions about Corey. A Valentine's Day incident in 2022, just weeks before his death, further fueled these suspicions. Eric experienced what appeared to be an allergic reaction after eating a sandwich Corey picked up for him. He later texted friends, "You almost lost me this time. I think she might have poisoned me." As Corey promoted her grief book, seemingly moving forward the investigation into Eric's death, supported by a private investigator's findings, began to focus on her communications. Phone records revealed extensive contact between Corey, Eric, and a woman named Carmen Lauber, who had worked for Corey cleaning properties. Carmen, with a history of drug involvement, became a key figure. Detective Jeff O'Driscoll took over the case, initiating a fresh approach. A search of Carmen Lauber's trash yielded drug paraphernalia, leading to a search warrant for her home. There, police found drugs, a firearm, and a copy of Eric's obituary taped to a mirror. This discovery amplified suspicions about Corey. Carmen Lauber, facing prosecution, entered into a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Corey. She claimed Corey had asked her on 2 separate occasions to procure fentanyl, allegedly stating the first batch wasn't strong enough. Carmen identified her dealer as Robert Crozier. Text messages between Carmen and Corey around Valentine's Day 2022 and shortly before Eric's death were also significant. The accumulated evidence, Corey's massive debt, the suspicious circumstances of Eric's death, the financial strain, the allegations of past poisoning attempts, and the drug link through Carmen Lauber provided probable cause for her arrest. Corey Richens, the author of a children's book about grief, was charged with aggravated murder and possession of narcotics with intent to distribute. The story became a media sensation, amplified by the juxtaposition of her published vulnerability and the criminal charges. The legal proceedings began, and Corey maintained her innocence. The defense argued for accidental overdose, while prosecutors built a case around financial motive, marital unhappiness, and a desire for a fresh start. The prosecution presented a parade of witnesses, including Carmen Lauber, who testified about procuring fentanyl for Corey. Robert Crozier, the alleged dealer, also testified, his story evolving under scrutiny. Friends like Becky Lloyd and Allie Stakings testified about Corey's statements regarding feeling trapped in her marriage and potentially wishing Eric dead, though the defense challenged the accuracy and context of these recollections. The most dramatic testimony came from Josh Grossman, Corey's ex-lover. His emotional account of their affair, their shared dreams of a future together, and text messages exchanged just days before Eric's death painted a picture of a relationship that fueled Corey's alleged desire for Eric to just go away. His testimony, revealing his own heartbreak and discomfort, added layers of complexity to the emotional landscape. The defense's surprising decision to rest their case without calling witnesses and Corey's decision not to testify left the jury to deliberate on the prosecution's evidence. The verdict was guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder. The jury deliberated for under 3 hours, concluding that the state had met its burden of proof. Corey Richens was convicted, her narrative of grief replaced by the stark reality of a murder conviction. Her children were subsequently removed from her custody, their parental rights terminated, and they were adopted by Eric's sister. The criminal charges related to drug possession were dropped, but new charges of insurance fraud emerged, alleging she took out a life insurance policy on Eric without his knowledge. The case underscored the powerful interplay of financial desperation, marital dissatisfaction, and alleged calculated actions, a stark contrast to the gentle narrative of her children's book. While the legal battles for Corey Richins were far from over, the narrative shifted from the author of a grief book to a woman convicted of murder, leaving a profound void not only in the lives of her children, but in the public's perception of truth and performance. Now, we turn our attention to a different landscape, a more tranquil setting that was violently disrupted, a story of peace shattered by a brutal act. The tranquil facade and the shadow on Paradise Ranch. The picturesque region of Paso Robles, California, known for its rolling vineyards, oak trees, and scenic beauty, often evokes an atmosphere of fairy tale serenity. It's a place that draws visitors seeking a respite from the ordinary, a retreat into a world of natural splendor and quiet charm. Yet beneath this idyllic surface, tragedy can strike with devastating force, as it did at Paradise Ranch, a secluded vacation home on El Faro Road. Here resided Nancy Woodrum, a 62-year-old woman who was a beloved figure in the Paso Robles community, a salon owner known for her warm and generous spirit. Nancy lived alone after her husband, Robert, passed away some years prior. Her salon, The Strand, was more than just a place for haircuts. It was a hub of connection, a testament to Nancy's gift for making everyone feel seen and valued. Her daughter, Amanda, who now styles hair at the salon, remembers her mother with profound affection, cherishing photographs that captured their close bond. Nancy was described as someone who liked to have fun, was active, and found peace in nature, particularly in horseback riding. Her faith was central to her life. A devout Jehovah's Witness, Nancy raised Amanda with strong morals and a deep belief in a future paradise. This faith was a source of comfort, especially after enduring significant personal tragedies. The loss of an infant son, Christopher, just 10 days after his birth, the death of her daughter, Amy, from cystic fibrosis before her 18th birthday, and the sudden heart attack that claimed her husband, Robert. Nancy's faith, her hope for reunion with loved ones, was her anchor. The property itself, Paradise Ranch, purchased in 2006, was a project that Robert and Nancy transformed into a beautiful home. Later, they converted it into a vacation rental, a place where visitors could experience the tranquility they had found. Nancy named it Paradise Ranch, a reflection of her spiritual hope. In early May, the ranch was abuzz with activity. 20 wedding guests, including the bride, bridesmaids, and close friends, checked in for a wedding at a local winery. The bride, who found the property online, sought a fairy tale place. Nancy, warm and welcoming, personally greeted guests, mentioning she was staying nearby. The idyll was shattered on Saturday, May 5th. Amanda received a call that her mother had missed a Bible study, an uncharacteristic absence. A neighbor, checking on Nancy, found the door ajar and the television blaring. When Amanda arrived, the scene was deeply unsettling. Nancy was gone, her purse, keys, and phone left behind, her vehicles parked outside. There were bloodstains on the carpet, a bloody pillow, and blood spatter on the walls and headboard. The absence of bedding was also noted. The conclusion was immediate. This was not a simple missing person case. It was a crime scene. The discovery of bedding and clothing stained with what appeared to be blood, found 6 or 7 miles away on La Ponza Road, confirmed the grim reality. These items, identified by Amanda as belonging to Nancy, suggested her body had been transported. The scene at Nancy's cottage itself, with scuffle marks in the driveway and a partial handprint on the bloody pillow, possibly the murder. Weapon pointed towards an assault and abduction. The presence of so many wedding guests on the property turned the investigation into a complex puzzle. 20-plus people, all potential witnesses or suspects, had access to Nancy, the bride, sleeping just one wall away from Nancy's cottage, claimed to have heard nothing unusual, despite Nancy's door being open. Investigators meticulously interviewed each guest, seeking any detail, any anomaly, anything that might break the case open. One wedding guest, in particular, drew attention. His whereabouts on the night of Nancy's disappearance were initially unclear, and his reluctance to cooperate raised red flags, while he eventually provided an alibi supported by his wife's photos from a rehearsal dinner and submitted a DNA sample that cleared him. His initial evasiveness highlighted the challenges investigators faced in a closed circle of potential suspects, adding to the complexity were the contractors working on the property for its sale. Among them was a painter, Carlo Fuentes, and a general contractor, Sean Bloom. Sean Bloom had a documented dispute with Nancy over payment, leading to threats of lawsuits. He refused to provide a DNA sample voluntarily, requesting an attorney, which raised suspicions but ultimately did not lead to his identification as a suspect. The investigators also delved into Nancy's personal history, her deep faith, and the personal tragedies she had endured. These losses, while defining her resilience, underscored the profound human cost of her disappearance. A critical breakthrough came not from a witness, but from technology. The discovery of an interrupted 911 call from Nancy's phone at 12:17 a.m. provided a precise timestamp for her disappearance. This information allowed investigators to employ a relatively new forensic tool, Google geofencing, by creating a virtual perimeter around Paradise Ranch for the specific time frame. They could request data on any Google accounts or devices that entered that zone. The geofencing data revealed several cell phone pings within Nancy's cottage and studio during the critical hours, while many were attributed to the wedding guests. One device repeatedly pinged inside Nancy's studio at unusual hours, specifically at 1:33 a.m. and 0:15 hours, the estimated time of Nancy's disappearance. This solitary ping became the focal point. It led to a warrant for subscriber information, ultimately identifying the owner of the device, Carlo Fuentes Flores, the painter. The revelation was surprising. Carlo had been interviewed earlier and appeared cooperative and mild-mannered, with no criminal record. However, deep dive into his Google search history uncovered a hidden persona. Searches for cougar in sexy lingerie videos, along with evidence of him using escorts and recording sexual encounters, revealed a disturbing obsession with older women, a stark contrast to his public image. His home life, a wife and daughter, seemed at odds with these secret activities. Investigators conducted surveillance, obtaining a DNA sample from a discarded Coke bottle Carlo had used at a restaurant. The DNA matched the sample from the bloody pillow at Nancy's cottage. The evidence was now undeniable. Carlo Fuentes Flores was directly linked to the crime scene. During a second interrogation, confronted with the geofencing data and the DNA match, Carlo's story shifted. He admitted returning to the property for a ladder, claiming he accidentally hit Nancy with his truck while backing up and then brought her inside where she collapsed. This narrative of an accident soon evolved. Under further questioning, he confessed to having sexual intentions, hitting Nancy to wake her, raping her, and then suffocating her with a pillow. for approximately 45 minutes. He admitted using Nancy's bedding to wrap her body and transporting her to the remote Carrizo Plain. He agreed to lead investigators to her remains, a journey that took them through désolat terrain. After several false starts, Carlo pointed to a distinct pile of rocks where Nancy's scattered remains were found. His demeanor shifted from evasiveness to apparent remorse, a stark transformation that investigators noted. He wrote an apology letter to Nancy's family before being formally arrested and charged. The case proceeded towards trial, but Carlo Fuentes Flores ultimately chose to plead guilty to first-degree murder with the special circumstance of rape and burglary, opting for life without parole rather than face a trial and the potential death penalty. The judge accepted the plea, finding him guilty. The legal system, through diligent investigation, the application of technology, and the relentless pursuit of truth, had brought Carlo Fuentes Flores to justice. For Nancy Woodrum's family, the discovery of her remains brought a measure of closure, though the pain of her senseless loss, her life cut short just as she was poised to dedicate herself fully to her faith and her hope for paradise, remained profound. Her legacy lived on through her family, her daughter, continuing their shared traditions, remembering Nancy as a strong, loving woman with an extraordinary heart. These two cases, though distinct in their circumstances, speak to universal themes: the hidden complexities of human behavior, the devastating impact of betrayal and violence, and the unwavering commitment of those who seek to bring light to the darkest corners of human experience. They remind us that justice, though often hard-won, is a beacon that guides us, honoring the victims and affirming the enduring strength of the human spirit. Part 1. The Shadow Beneath the Oaks. Chapter 1. The Serenity of Paso Robles. As someone who has spent a lifetime dissecting the intricate, often dark, corridors of the human mind, I find that certain landscapes hold a particular resonance. They are places where beauty and tranquility coexist with an almost palpable sense of peace, making the intrusion of evil all the more jarring. Paso Robles, California, nestled halfway between the bustling metropolises of San Francisco and Los Angeles, is such a place, known for its rolling hills, oak-studded vistas, and burgeoning vineyard culture. It embodies a vision of idyllic American life. The name itself, El Paso de Robles, meaning the pass of the oaks, evokes a timeless, natural grandeur, is a landscape that whispers promises of quietude, of harvest, of a life lived in harmony with the earth and its bounty. It is into this serene setting that we must cast our minds, for it was here, amidst this pastoral beauty, that tragedy found a foothold. Our story begins with Nancy Woodrum, a 62-year-old woman who, after the passing of her husband a few years prior, lived alone on her secluded property off El Faro Road. Nancy was not merely a resident. She was a fixture, a vibrant thread woven into the fabric of the Paso Robles community. Her popular downtown salon, Strand, was a place where 3-week appointments were a cherished ritual for many, a testament to her skill and the personal connections she fostered. Friends described her with an effortless warmth, an amazing gift of just openness, kindness, just generous. She possessed a remarkable ability to connect with people, a trait she had passed on to her daughter, Amanda, who now carried on the family legacy as a stylist. Amanda remembers her mother vividly, particularly a photograph that sums up their bond. It just really shows that relationship that we had. Sums it all up. Nancy, she recalled, was a woman who liked to have fun. She liked to do things. She was active. We were always doing stuff. Going here, going there with the horses, the animals. She loved riding. It was calming to her, and she loved being out in nature with the horses. This love for horses and the outdoors was a shared passion with Amanda, but it was grounded in something deeper. Their shared faith. Nancy had raised Amanda as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, instilling in her strong morals and a guiding hope. She had very strong morals and raised me to be a good person, Amanda would later say. Nancy herself was described as always a devout Jehovah's Witness, her faith a cornerstone of her life, providing a framework for understanding the world and her place in it. Her belief system offered a vision of a beautiful paradise again, a future where the earth will be made new. This hope for paradise was, in a poignant way, reflected in the name Nancy gave to her own property on El Faro Road. After purchasing the fixer-upper in 2006 with her husband, Robert, they had transformed it into a beautiful two-story Victorian home with wraparound porches. Her father, a contractor, had helped, and their hard work culminated in what Nancy christened Paradise Ranch. It was a name that encapsulated her deepest spiritual aspirations and her love for the land. It was a place of beauty, a sanctuary. And so, on Friday, May 4th, this sanctuary was to host a celebration. A wedding party, along with more than 20 guests, had booked Paradise Ranch for a weekend wedding at a local winery. The bride, who wished to remain anonymous, found place online. We wanted to do a vineyard wedding in Paso Robles. It was a special place to us, she explained. Paradise Ranch seemed perfect when we saw the pictures. The main house was very large and welcoming and just charming. And then the guest house was where I was staying, and that was also just very quaint and cute. Nancy, ever the gracious host, even visited the guest house, introducing herself to the bride, offering a warm hug, and confirming she was staying nearby. It was a picture of idyllic rural hospitality, a beautiful prelude to a joyous occasion. Chapter 2, The Unseen Disruption. The serene tableau was about to be shattered. The narrative of a perfect wedding weekend, filled with laughter and celebration, was destined to be overshadowed by a chilling discovery, a disruption so profound it would cast a long shadow over the rolling hills of Paso Robles. The idyllic scene was merely a backdrop, a cruel irony against the unfolding tragedy. It began subtly with an anomaly that, in retrospect, screamed of something terribly wrong. On Saturday, May 5th, the day after the guests arrived, Amanda received a phone call that planted the first seeds of dread. Her mother, Nancy, had failed to show up for a Bible study. This was not a minor oversight. It was deeply uncharacteristic. My mom had not shown up for a Bible study, and that was very unusual, Amanda recounted, her voice tinged with the memory of mounting panic. Concern escalated. Amanda asked her mother's neighbor to check on Nancy at her cottage on the property. The neighbor's report was immediate and alarming. A stark deviation from the expected morning routine. She said, "The door's wide open, the TV's blaring, and you better come over here." The words themselves conjured an image of chaos, of a place violently interrupted. Amanda rushed to her mother's cottage. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Everything was there as she left it, but she wasn't there. Nancy's belongings remained, but she had vanished. Then her eyes fell upon the details that painted a far more sinister picture. There was a stain on the carpet. Her sheets and her bedding were missing. This wasn't just a case of someone wandering off. This was something violent. The bloodstain was the first concrete indicator. But it was what she saw when she looked closer that sealed the terrifying reality. I looked closer at the walls, and when I saw what looked to be splatter on the walls, that's when I grabbed the phone and called 911. The call to emergency services, captured on the dispatcher's recording, marked the formal descent into a criminal investigation. 911, address of your emergency? Yeah, we have a missing person. My mother-in-law has not been heard of or seen today. The dispatcher then pressed for details, leading to the chilling discovery. Did you see anything else strange when you went in the house? Yes. There seems to be blood all over her pillow. There's 20 plus guests staying in the big house, and there's a wedding party. The wedding party, meant to be guests celebrating a joyous occasion, were now inadvertently entangled in a potential crime scene. The bride herself, who had met Nancy just the day before, was thrust into a nightmare. I was so excited, getting ready for my wedding day, and a couple family members came by, and I just remember, have you seen my mom? Have you seen our mom? And something about blood, and I freaked out. I just asked if they had seen my mom today, and no one had seen her. The initial state of mind for those present was one of pure panic and disbelief. Panic, shaky and frantic, Amanda would later describe. The beautiful, secluded Paradise Ranch had transformed in an instant from a fairy tale wedding venue into a crime scene. Yellow police tape would soon cordon off the property, transforming the landscape of beauty into a scene of forensic investigation. Helicopters hummed overhead, dogs searched the grounds, and the sense of violation was palpable. The wedding guests, now potential witnesses or even suspects, found their celebratory weekend abruptly and terrifyingly interrupted. Their return to their accommodations, now a source of unease. The very people gathered for joy were now under scrutiny, their presence on the property a critical element of the unfolding mystery. Chapter 3. The Investigator's Eye. The first responders, efficient and trained, immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. The scene at Nancy Woodrum's cottage was far from suggesting a simple disappearance. As the call went out for detectives, the psychological undercurrents of the crime scene began to assert themselves. The initial responding deputy, Senior Deputy Degnan, met with the on-call detective. Sergeant, his demeanor, even in those early moments, conveyed the somber reality. This is very suspicious. Something's very wrong here, he noted, his voice resonating with the unease that would soon permeate the entire investigation. Detective Clinton Cole, a senior deputy at the time with the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, was called to the scene. His truck made its way towards El Faro Road, the picturesque surroundings offering a stark contrast to the grim purpose of his arrival. Pulling up to the property, he saw the large, white main house, now the temporary command center for the investigation. He met with Deputy Degnan, who relayed his initial impressions. The house itself, the backdrop to the wedding festivities, now seemed to hold a silent, ominous significance. The investigation began methodically, moving from the main house towards Nancy's cottage, a separate dwelling on the property. This was where the most critical evidence lay. As Detective Cole approached, he saw what the neighbor had described. The door was open. No signs of forced entry. He observed a detail that immediately steered the investigation away from a random break-in and towards someone known to Nancy or someone who could gain access without force. Entering the cottage, the signs of a violent struggle became undeniably clear. Well, when I first walked in, right here below me was 2 large blood spots. Cole recounted, pointing to the floor. Bloodstains, concrete and terrifying, marked the space. Then, on a nearby bench, lay Nancy's personal effects, her purse, car keys, cell phone, and iPad. These were items one would expect to have with them if leaving voluntarily, yet they remained abandoned. Her vehicles were parked outside, also undisturbed. The pillow on the bed became a focal point, and on that bench was Nancy's purse, car keys, her cell phone, her iPad. Cole continued. It was a pillow. Sitting here, a beige pillow that had blood on it, and there was blood spatter on that cabinet, as well as on Nancy's headboard and against the back wall. The blood spatter, particularly on the wall and headboard, indicated a violent event had occurred within the bedroom itself. The bloody pillow was not just a passive object. It suggested a direct involvement in the assault, perhaps even used as a weapon. These signals, loud and clear, painted a grim picture. What are all these signals telling you about what happened in this cottage? The interviewer asked. Cole's response was unequivocal. I felt immediately that she was taken against her will. You thought this was a crime scene? Absolutely. Right away. The tranquility of the Pass of the Oaks had been irrevocably breached, replaced by the cold, hard facts of a violent crime. The initial hypothesis was clear. Nancy Woodrum had been attacked, and she had been forcibly removed from her home. Chapter 4. The Web of Suspects. The reality of the situation began to dawn on the investigators. Paradise Ranch, the intended venue for joy and celebration, had become a complex crime scene, populated by a multitude of people. There's 20-plus guests staying in the big house, and there's a wedding party. Amanda had stated, a fact that now weighed heavily on the detectives. The property, so remote and secluded, offered few external possibilities for the perpetrator. If Nancy hadn't left willingly, and there were no signs of forced entry from the outside, the most logical conclusion was that the person responsible was already within the confines of the property. This realization dramatically expanded the suspect pool. These are all potential suspects in the case, was the stark assessment. The presence of 20 or more individuals, ostensibly guests celebrating a wedding, now transformed them into persons of interest, each one potentially holding a piece of the puzzle, or worse, being the missing piece. The wedding party, comprising close friends and family members, occupied the main house and guest house. They had access to the property, proximity to Nancy's cottage, and critically had been present during the time frame of Nancy's disappearance. The psychological impact on these individuals was immense. What had begun as a joyous weekend was now laced with fear and suspicion. They were, by circumstance, suspects. The narrative shifted from a celebration to something akin to a classic mystery novel, a whodunit, where the characters are literally trapped within the setting of the crime. I knew that something really bad had happened, and it wasn't going to be good. Amanda had reflected earlier, and this sentiment now echoed through the entire wedding party and the attending investigators. The investigators faced a daunting task. How do you interrogate a group of people who are supposed to be celebrating a wedding, many of whom are likely innocent? The logistical challenge was immense. We have a missing person on this property and potentially 20 to 24 people that could be suspects. The question became, was this an opportunistic crime by someone attending the wedding, or was something else entirely? Adding to the bewilderment was the seeming lack of witnesses. Despite the number of people on the property, no one reported hearing a struggle, a scream, or unusual activity from Nancy's cottage during the critical hours. The bride, sleeping mere yards away in the guest house, claimed to have heard nothing. This silence was perplexing. Did it imply a perpetrator who was exceptionally stealthy, or did it suggest that Nancy knew her attacker and was taken by surprise, or perhaps coerced without a loud struggle? The investigators began the process of interviewing each guest, trying to establish timelines, alibis, and any unusual observations. It was a painstaking process, sifting through the ordinary actions of wedding guests to find any deviation, any clue that might point towards Nancy's assailant. The remote beauty of Paso Robles, once an attraction, now felt like a cage trapping both the suspects and the investigators in a web of suspicion and uncertainty. The draw of the fairy tale place had dissolved into a chilling reality where everyone was under scrutiny and the truth remained hidden somewhere within the sprawling property. Chapter 5: New Avenues, Old Wounds. As the initial investigation focused on the wedding guests, a critical piece of information emerged that broadened the scope of inquiry. Nancy Woodrum had been planning to sell Paradise Ranch. This was not merely a financial transaction. It was a decision driven by her deep-seated desire to pursue her faith more fully. She wanted to preach full-time. She really wanted to teach people about the Bible and share her hope with other people. The property, with its ongoing upkeep, had become too much of a burden. The sale meant that the property had recently been occupied by a number of individuals performing work, contractors, painters, plumbers, all involved in finalizing the sale. This opened up a new pool of potential persons of interest, individuals who had access to the property and Nancy's living space in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Every single person that was on this property within the last couple weeks had to be located and interviewed, stated Detective Cole. Among the items recovered from Nancy's cottage was her iPad case, surrounded by pamphlets and notes. Investigators found contact information, including that of a painter named Carlo Fuentes. He was immediately flagged as someone who needed to be interviewed. When contacted, Fuentes proved cooperative and friendly. He recalled being on the property on a Thursday, confirming Nancy was present. He stated he hadn't noticed any arguments or disagreements, remembering Nancy as kind, even giving him a tamale. He seemed like a pleasant, unassuming individual, his demeanor offering no immediate red flags. Simultaneously, Amanda provided detectives with another name, Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had worked on the house. Amanda reported that Nancy and Mr. Bloom had experienced a dispute over work that had been performed, and it had become quite heated and quite contentious. According to Amanda, Sean Bloom was very frustrated. He eventually got fired. He did not get payment until escrow closed for the work that he had done up to that point. This financial dispute provided a potential motive, a clear point of contention that had escalated. When interviewed, Sean Bloom did not shy away from his dislike for Nancy. Actually, I don't like working with Nancy. It's been very difficult. We had issues where Nancy was not happy with our work, fire me off the job. His text messages with Nancy confirmed this animosity. He threatened lawsuits if payment wasn't received quickly. Bloom became a primary person of interest. Investigators asked him to provide a DNA sample, a standard procedure. However, Bloom's response was guarded. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to say, let me talk to my attorney. This hesitation, while not an outright refusal, immediately raised suspicion. Was he merely being cautious, or was he concerned about what his DNA might reveal? The investigation was navigating multiple threads, each representing a potential pathway to the truth. There was the seemingly mild-mannered painter with no apparent motive and a disgruntled contractor with a clear financial grievance. Meanwhile, the personal history of the victim, Nancy Woodrum, revealed a woman of immense strength and resilience. She had navigated profound personal tragedies, the death of a baby son, Christopher Michael, at 10 days old due to intestinal blockages, the passing of her daughter, Amy, from cystic fibrosis shortly before her 18th birthday, and the sudden death of her husband, Robert, from a heart attack. She had really strong faith in God and good hope that she was going to see her loved ones again, recalled Amanda. This strength, this deep-rooted faith, made her disappearance all the more baffling and heartbreaking. It seemed impossible that such a woman, who had weathered so much, could simply vanish in a thin air. Chapter 6. The Digital Footprint. The case began to feel stalled, the initial leads proving elusive. The wedding guests, though present, offered no direct witnesses to any foul play. The contractors were being interviewed, but tangible evidence was scarce. Then a critical detail emerged from the chaotic initial calls. The brief, almost instantaneous 911 call at midnight 17. At midnight 17, there was a 911 call that showed up on the bill for 0 seconds, meaning it didn't go through. It could shut off somehow, like in a split second, like very quickly. This interruption, this failed call, provided investigators with a precise, albeit harrowing, timestamp. It offered a window, approximately 12 days into the investigation, into the moment something terrible likely happened to Nancy. Around the same time, the lab results from the evidence collected at Nancy's cottage finally came back. The unknown male DNA found on the bloody pillow was run through CODIS, the National DNA Database. The result was a null match. The perpetrator had no prior criminal record accessible through the database, meaning they were likely unknown to law enforcement or had managed to evade official detection. This was a significant setback, ruling out many immediate avenues of inquiry. Sean Bloom, the contractor with the financial dispute, had eventually agreed to provide his DNA. When the results came back, they cleared him as a suspect. This was a crucial piece of exoneration, narrowing the focus once again. The wedding guest who had been unaccounted for was also cleared. The digital footprint of the property, however, held a different kind of promise. Investigators decided to employ a relatively new, cutting-edge investigative tool, geofencing. This technology, used by Google, allows law enforcement to draw a virtual fence around a specific geographical area. In this case, Nancy's property, Paradise Ranch, and its immediate surroundings for a defined period. Google then provides a list of all Google accounts associated with devices that entered that geofenced area during that specific time frame. It's like creating a digital net. You can put a fence, a virtual fence, around an area, a house, a property, and Google will track which Google accounts, emails, or cell phones come within that fence in a given period of time. To obtain this information, search warrants were written and served upon Google, specifically targeting the period around midnight on May 4th and 5th. The geofence results provided a list of device identifiers. While these were not phone numbers, they were unique digital fingerprints specific to each device that had entered the designated area. The larger circle within the geofence map represented the wedding guests whose phones were logged. However, the data showed only 4 devices associated with the wedding guests within the main geofence, despite there being over 20 guests. Investigators theorized this was because most guests' phones were likely in silent or sleep mode, not actively transmitting data via apps, thus not triggering a detailed log. But the true breakthrough came when the investigators examined the data associated with Nancy's cottage, her studio specifically. As we get here, that is actually Nancy's studio, and we see a cell phone, what we call pinging, basically right in the wall of Nancy's studio. This device pinged at 8:33 in the morning, and at 1:52 hours, precisely the time frame they believed Nancy disappeared. That is 100% when we believe Nancy disappeared, stated Detective Cole. This ping was electrifying. It meant a device, presumably belonging to the perpetrator, was inside Nancy's private space at the critical moment. Could it have been Nancy's phone? We don't know, but what we do know is it's at strange, odd hours, and it's inside her studio. The potential was enormous. Either this device belonged to Nancy, leading to a dead end, or it belonged to someone else. A potential suspect who was inside her home and now had a digital breadcrumb trail. Either that device leads us to a suspect, or we are back to absolutely nothing. Square one. The geofence had provided the first concrete, non-circumstantial lead to an individual's presence at the heart of the crime. The digital world had finally yielded a tangible clue in the desolate landscape of Paso Robles. Chapter 7. The Unveiling of the Painter. The digital breadcrumb trail led investigators to a name, Carlo Fuentes Flores. The device that had pinged inside Nancy's studio at the time of her suspected disappearance belonged to him. This was, to say the least, surprising. Fuentes, the painter, had already been interviewed. He had been cooperative, mild-mannered, and had offered no obvious motive. He was familiar with the property, having done painting work there, and was therefore aware of Nancy's habits and the layout. The investigators now had to reconcile his previous demeanor with this alarming new data. Wait a minute. The painter? Well, this is a shock to investigators, noted the narrator. He had presented as a friendly, diligent worker. Now his phone's presence inside Nancy's cottage during the estimated time of her disappearance cast him in a far more sinister light. We know it's his phone. We know he's there. We know he had that opportunity because he's familiar with the property. He was familiar with Nancy's habits. All those things added up. The logic was inescapable. His phone being there suggested he was there, and his presence at that hour inside her studio was highly suspicious. There's not a reasonable explanation why anybody would be out doing painting at that time of night. He was no longer just a contractor. He was now the primary person of interest. To build a stronger case, detectives delved deeper into Carlo Fuentes Flores's background and digital life. They spoke to people he had painted for and friends. The picture that emerged was of a seemingly ordinary man, a family man. From Mexico, a professional who was neat, tidy painter and professional. He was great with clients, very polite and courteous, just loved being a dad. He was, loved his daughter, like just raved about his daughter. He was a father, a husband, and by all accounts was someone who was just leading a normal life. This dual portrait, the hard-working family, man versus the suspect in a violent crime, presented a confounding enigma. Crucially, his criminal record revealed nothing. There was absolutely nothing in his criminal record, either in Mexico or the United States. We found no indication that he had a criminal history anywhere. This lack of a criminal past made his alleged involvement even more baffling. There was no obvious romantic relationship with Nancy, no apparent financial dispute beyond routine. Contractor payments. The connection, the motive, remained elusive. Why would this seemingly ordinary man, with no prior record and no apparent grievance, target Nancy Woodrum? It was during this deep dive into his digital life that investigators stumbled upon something unexpected, something that peeled back the veneer of normalcy. Carlo Fuentes Flores's Google search history revealed a disturbing preoccupation. He was searching for cougar and sexy lingerie videos and similar terms related to older women. This has a theme to it that is tied to our case. The narrator observed. Nancy Woodrum was older than Fuentes by approximately 15 to 20 years, fitting the description that seemed to fascinate him. He clearly has a thing for older women, based on his Google search history. Absolutely. Further investigation into his phone revealed even more troubling behavior. He had searched for escorts in various cities he had visited. The detectives believed he had connected with some of these individuals. They discovered numerous videos on his phone, shot by Fuentes himself, depicting him having sex with various women, at least 10 to 15 videos. This revealed a hidden, almost clandestine side to his life, a stark contrast to the polite, professional painter. So this father, this husband, had secrets, a lot of deep secrets that most people don't have. He was, in essence, living a dual existence, the respectable tradesman by day and a man with peculiar sexual fetishes and a penchant for extramarital encounters by night. This revelation added a potential layer of motive, though still unclear. Was it a sexual encounter gone wrong, or something more sinister driven by his obsessions? The geofence hit provided his presence. The search history hinted at a psychological profile that was far from benign. Yet, the geofence data alone, while compelling, wasn't enough to arrest him. A phone could be lost, stolen, or used by someone else. They needed more concrete proof that linked Carlo Fuentes Flores directly to the assault on Nancy Woodrum. They needed his DNA, specifically a match to the blood on the pillow. Chapter 8. The Confession and the Truth. The pressure mounted, with Carlo Fuentes Flores identified as the owner of the phone found at the crime scene, and his disturbing online searches pointing towards a hidden obsession. Investigators knew they needed more than circumstantial evidence. They needed a definitive link. The breakthrough came when detectives surveilled Fuentes. He went to a local restaurant with his wife and, crucially, left a Coke bottle on the table after finishing his drink. In a public place, this provided an opportunity to collect DNA without a warrant. The bottle was retrieved and rushed to the DNA lab. The results were conclusive and earth-shattering. The DNA from the Coke bottle matched the unknown male DNA found on the bloody pillow from Nancy Woodrum's bed. It's a match, and it's a critical moment in this investigation. The abstract digital trail and disturbing search history had now coalesced into hard biological evidence. Carlo Fuentes Flores was not just present. He was physically connected to the violence that occurred in Nancy's cottage. With this irrefutable proof, detectives brought Fuentes in for a more intense interrogation. This was the moment to confront him with the evidence and hopefully elicit the truth. The interrogation room was stark, the atmosphere heavy. Detectives Dave and Clint Cole presented their case methodically, starting with his work on the property. What exactly were you guys painting? Like the deck, the trim fascia boards. Fuentes answered, confirming he worked on the deck of the big house and used the bathroom facilities there. The detective strategy was to refamiliarize him with the property, to place him there mentally before revealing what they knew. They subtly probed his knowledge of Nancy's cottage and studio. Did you know where Nancy stayed? To be honest, I didn't even know that she was staying in that area. This statement, however, was about to be challenged. Fuentes stuck to his initial story. Nancy was nice, gave him tamales, they even read scripture together. He claimed he didn't know what happened to her, only hearing from his boss that she had disappeared. The detectives knew he was not being entirely truthful. They began to apply more pressure. Please don't take this the wrong way, but are you in any way involved with Nancy missing? Oh, no. No. Any reason why anyone would say that? Well, because there's no reason. Yeah, there's no reason. Then came the reveal. The detectives informed him they had DNA evidence placing him at the scene of the assault. We've done a very thorough investigation. We've spent thousands of hours on this case because we waited for all of the evidence. We were able to say, no, we know you came back. We know a lot of stuff. We're giving you a chance now to change your story and be honest with us if you have something else that you'd like to tell us. At that moment, the psychological shift was palpable. At that moment, in my opinion, he knew we knew. It was no longer, what do they know? It was, oh no. They know. And you could see his body change. The carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Oh my God. I want to be honest with you guys. I know that I made a mistake. I made a mistake. The confession began, but not in the way the investigators might have expected. Fuentes admitted to killing Nancy, but claimed it was an accident. He said he returned to her cottage late at night to retrieve a ladder for a subsequent job. While backing up his truck, he didn't realize Nancy had walked behind him, and he struck her. So you're saying you hit her with your car, your truck? Hum. And then I took her back in the place, and that's when she collapsed. It was an accident. I hit her. I took her inside to help her. This narrative was an attempt to mitigate his culpability, to frame the death as a tragic mishap, rather than a deliberate act. However, the details soon became more disturbing. When pressed about what happened after he brought her inside, his story took a dark turn. How did you have sex with her? I mean, tell me how that transpired. I was drunk. The accidental death morphed into a rape, followed by murder. He claimed he showed up to get the ladder, and she did not know he was coming. This confirmed the investigator's suspicion. If the encounter was not consensual and involved rape, it elevated the crime to a special circumstance murder. Then came the chilling detail of the smothering. He admitted to suffocating Nancy with a pillow. After you finished having sex with her, how long did it take you to put the pillow over her face? 45 minutes. This protracted act of violence, followed by the disposal of her body, painted a picture of chilling premeditation and brutality. He admitted to wrapping her body in bedding and driving out to the Carrizo Plains to dispose of her. The bedding that was found on the side of La Ponza Road, Carlo confirmed with us that he had wrapped Nancy Woodrum's body up in some of that bedding. That was what blew out of his pickup as he was driving out to the Carrizo Plains. When asked to lead investigators to her body, Fuentes agreed, a sign of his broken state, perhaps a form of penance. The drive through the rugged terrain was tense. He directed them eastward, towards the Carrizo Plain, a vast, arid landscape where concealment was difficult, yet finding a specific spot was also challenging. After stopping at several locations, none of which seemed right, his demeanor shifted. Upon seeing a distinct pile of rocks, he recognized it as the marker. Oh my God, yes, he exclaimed, falling to his knees and crying. There, beneath the rocks, lay the scattered remains of Nancy Woodrum. The discovery brought a grim finality to the search, a painful closure for her family. Chapter 9. Justice and Lingering Questions. With the discovery of Nancy Woodrum's body, the investigation reached its climax. Carlo Fuentes Flores, having confessed to rape, murder, and the disposal of the body, was arrested. The subsequent legal proceedings brought a measure of justice to Nancy's grieving family, though the profound loss remained. Prosecutors pursued a murder charge with special circumstances, murder during the commission of a rape and burglary. While the death penalty was an option, it was not pursued. Instead, Fuentes Flores ultimately entered into a slow plea agreement. This meant he would allow a judge to find him guilty based on the presented evidence, avoiding a lengthy trial but preserving his right to appeal. During the interrogation, the detectives had pressed him on whether he remembered hanging up the 911 call. He couldn't recall citing his intoxication. He claimed he was in Nancy's house for about 40 minutes, mostly. After the assault, he drove away, and the bedding containing her body eventually fell out of his truck as he was driving to dispose of it in the remote plains. The evidence against Fuentes was substantial, his phone's presence at the crime, seen at the crucial time, his DNA on the bloody pillow, his confession to rape, and murder, and the discovery of Nancy's remains at his direction. His defense. Attorneys attempted to have his confession suppressed, arguing that he was a native Spanish speaker and should have been given Miranda warnings in Spanish or with an interpreter. However, the judge denied this motion, finding that Fuentes understood the warnings given in English and that his rights were preserved. In January of 2022, Fuentes Flores was found guilty of first-degree murder and the special circumstance of committing the murder during a rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a verdict that acknowledged the brutal nature of his crime and offered a sense of finality for Nancy's loved ones. Amanda, Nancy's daughter, read a victim impact statement in court expressing the devastating emptiness left by her mother's death. Let him know how he changed our lives, she stated, her words a testament to the enduring pain. The fact that he took her life for nothing, just to let him know that it sickened us. And what was the point? Because now he's going to live behind bars for the rest of his life for one foolish night. She conveyed the profound unfairness of it all. Nancy, who had survived so much personal tragedy, who had found peace and purpose in her faith, had her life brutally cut short just as she was preparing to dedicate herself fully to her ministry. Nancy Woodrum was remembered by her family and friends as a strong woman with the biggest heart. Her memorial service, held at a vineyard, was attended by hundreds, a testament to the impact she had on so many lives. Photographs displayed her love for the outdoors, for horses, for her family, and for her faith. Her legacy lived on through her daughter and grandchildren, who continued her traditions, riding horses together, a continuation of the bond they shared. Detective Clint Cole maintained a connection with Amanda, reaching out each year. On May 5th, the anniversary of Nancy's death, it was a quiet acknowledgement of a case that had touched him personally, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most peaceful surfaces. Carlo Fuentes Flores appealed his conviction in July of 2023, but the California Court of Appeals denied it. Justice in this instance had been served, though the scars of this senseless act of violence would forever remain. The case served as a stark reminder that the pursuit of truth often relies on meticulous investigation, cutting-edge technology, and the unwavering dedication of those who seek to bring perpetrators to justice, especially when the crime is committed by someone hiding in plain sight. Part 2, The Facade of Grief. Chapter 10, A Life Celebrated, a Death Mystified. The human psyche is a landscape of infinite complexity, a terrain where love and ambition, devotion and deception can coexist, sometimes seamlessly, often catastrophically. My work as a criminal psychologist and my immersion in the art of detective fiction have shown me that the most dangerous voids are not geographical, but psychological, the hidden spaces within a person where darkness can fester, masked by the most compelling of veneers. This was precisely the terrain I found myself exploring in the case of Eric Richins and his wife, Corey. On the surface, their story was one of American success. Eric Richins, a dynamic individual with a successful stonemasonry business, C&E Masonry, built a $1 million enterprise. He was a devoted father to their 3 young sons, involved in their lives, coaching their soccer teams. Corey, his wife, was an ambitious entrepreneur herself, having successfully launched her own real estate business, K. Richens Realty, flipping homes and managing numerous renovation projects. They resided in a beautiful home, projecting an image of a perfect family, blessed with wealth and opportunity. They were, by all accounts, living the dream. But dreams can turn into nightmares with terrifying speed. It was just after 3 in the morning, a time when the world is often at its most vulnerable, when the quiet of the night is broken by the most devastating news. Corey Richens made a frantic call to 911, her voice choked with panic. It's a little after 3 in the morning, and Corey Richens calls 911, saying her husband, Eric, is not breathing and is cold to the touch. When paramedics and law enforcement arrived at their home, the scene was one of desperate urgency. Inside the bedroom, officers and EMTs worked on Eric, who lay on his back on the floor. He had no pulse. He was not breathing. The rhythmic sound of a CPR machine filled the room, a desperate attempt to breathe life back into a body that seemed already lost. The initial moments captured on body-worn cameras unfolded like a life-or-death drama, law enforcement attempting to make sense of a sudden, tragic event. Corey, beside herself with distress, was questioned by officers. Her husband, just hours before, had been alive and well, celebrating a significant financial win for their real estate business. They had shared a drink at 9 in the evening. She mentioned her son had night terrors, and she had been sleeping with him, a detail that seemed to speak to her maternal instincts. When asked if Eric had any medical conditions, she mentioned Lyme disease, but no heart problems. She also hesitantly offered that he sometimes takes a gummy to sleep, but couldn't confirm if he had taken one that night. The question of illicit drug use was met with a firm no. Eric's mother, Lisa Darden, arrived on the scene, only to be met by officers asking who she was. Rushing into the house, she found Corey in total shock. The scene was devastating. She described Eric as having looked horrible and pale the previous night, mentioning he complained of chest pain. It was a confusing picture, a healthy, athletic man gone suddenly. The EMTs noted a surprising amount of blood, enough to spark an initial hypothesis, perhaps an aneurysm. I wonder if he had a hemorrhage or something with all the blood. There's a lot of blood for no reason. Eric's sister, Katie, arrived in a state of raw, guttural grief, her cries of, "No, no, 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 what happened?" echoing the disbelief and pain of sudden loss. She was visibly struggling to breathe, overwhelmed by the sheer horror. By 3:58 in the morning, Eric Richens was officially declared dead, his death noted as appearing to have occurred sometime before the arrival of emergency services. The death of a healthy 39-year-old man under such circumstances, while initially attributed to a potential medical event, was far from a simple tragedy. It was the beginning of a mystery that would demand answers, a mystery that would take years to unravel. The night of Eric's death marked not only a tragic end, but also the genesis of a profound investigation into the dark heart of deception. Chapter 11: Ambition and Illusions. Corey Richens, the grieving widow, was not merely a survivor of tragedy. She was a woman driven by ambition, a desire to transcend her past and achieve a level of success that mirrored the opulent lifestyles she had once only cleaned. Her childhood, marked by frequent moves due to her parents' construction work, instilled a sense of impermanence, a yearning for stability and wealth. By the time she reached junior high in Heber City, Utah, she had found belonging among. A close-knit group of girlfriends, a community that shared her youthful exuberance and her desire for excitement. She excelled in school and sports, developing a reputation as a tough cookie, someone who would defend her friends fiercely. It was during her time working at a new Home Depot in Park City that she met Eric Richens. He was a stonemason, a man significantly older than Corey, who frequented the store for his business. People who knew them recalled an immediate spark and undeniable chemistry. Eric, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, had served a 2-year mission in Mexico City and was building a successful business. He was described as a dynamic individual, someone who worked hard and played hard, enjoying hunting and outdoor exploration. Their relationship progressed rapidly. Corey became pregnant, and they married in a backyard ceremony. It was during this pivotal moment, as Corey was about to walk down the aisle, that a jarring note entered the harmony of their impending union. Eric's mother presented Corey with a prenuptial agreement. The document stipulated that Eric's stonemasonry business would remain his sole property, and Corey would only benefit from it financially if he were to die during their marriage. While Corey was pretty distraught over it, her love for Eric and her desire to marry him ultimately led her to sign. She went along to get along, a decision that, in retrospect, seemed to foreshadow future dynamics within the marriage. Despite this initial hurdle, Corey and Eric built a life together, welcoming 3 sons in quick succession. Corey, described as a planner, immersed herself in motherhood, juggling Boy Scout duties and soccer coaching. Eric, a dedicated dad, was deeply proud of his sons, often seen laughing as he watched them play. His business flourished, achieving significant financial success. The family enjoyed affluent experiences, taking trips, dining at fine restaurants. But Corey's ambition extended beyond the role of wife and mother. While initially staying home with the children, she eventually wanted more. In 2019, she launched her own real estate business, K. Richens Realty, focusing on buying and flipping properties. Her success was rapid. Within 2 years, she was managing 15 renovation projects, her business expanding quickly. This venture was more than just a career. It was the realization of her childhood dreams, a chance to own the mansions she once cleaned. The purchase of a distressed mansion in Midway, Utah, for nearly $3 million was to be her crowning achievement, a property she intended to flip for millions more. It was a very big moment for Corey Richens, her chance to say, "Look, I did it. I made something of myself." The illusion was complete. A perfect family, 2 thriving businesses, a life of unparalleled success. Chapter 12, Cracks in the Foundation. The image of the perfect family, however, was beginning to fray at the edges. Even before Eric's untimely death, the grief that descended after Eric's passing was profound, but it was quickly overshadowed by conflict, revealing deep fissures beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic life. The first overt sign of this discord emerged as Corey sought access to Eric's will. She was convinced it was kept in a safe, but she didn't know the combination. Eric's sister, Amy, became involved, and the dispute over the will escalated. Rapidly, the situation became so tense that a locksmith was called to the house to access the safe. Amy, upon seeing signs indicating the locksmith's presence, reacted with shock and anger, confronting Corey. It was during this confrontation that Amy dropped a bombshell. Eric had secretly established a trust, and Corey was largely excluded from its benefits. The estate planner later confirmed to Corey that around 2020, Eric had indeed created an estate, naming his sister Katie as executor and his sons as beneficiaries, with the house itself placed in the trust. This revelation explains Amy's earlier defensive reaction in the statement Corey would later recall, "It's not your home." The implication was clear. Eric, facing marital strife and concerned about Corey's financial decisions, had taken steps to protect his assets for their children, effectively limiting Corey's inheritance. The conflict spilled over into physical altercations. Amy later accused Corey of punching her in the face and neck. Corey was arrested and charged with assault, eventually pleading no contest and being found guilty. This incident, occurring mere days after Eric's death, set a bitter tone for the ensuing days. The animosity between Corey and Eric's family was palpable even at Eric's funeral, an event described as incredibly uncomfortable. Corey and Eric's family stood in separate areas, a clear and obvious divide immediately apparent. There was a very obvious divide immediately, and they wouldn't talk to each other. The funeral itself was described as a grand, yet deeply uncomfortable affair, marked by the visible rift between the two families. In the months that followed, Corey filed a civil lawsuit against Eric's sister, Katie, disputing the trust, indicating the financial battles were far from over. Her outward adjustment to life as a single mother and businesswoman seemed to proceed, but beneath the surface, the foundations of her life were crumbling. The carefully constructed facade of the grieving widow was beginning to crack, revealing the complex motivations and hidden struggles that lay beneath. Chapter 13, The Grieving Widow's Gambit. Corey Richens, having navigated the initial shock and the immediate family fallout, began to present herself to the world as a woman finding strength in her grief. She spoke of the importance of routine, particularly at night, for her and her children. She described searching for books to help them cope, only to find nothing suitable. This realization led her to a new venture, writing. With the help of a ghostwriter, Corey penned Are You With Me?, a children's book designed to help young ones process loss. The book, written from the perspective of a child wondering about his father's presence, and then from the father's comforting viewpoint, offered a narrative of enduring love. Corey dedicated the book to my amazing husband and a wonderful father, accompanying it with a drawing of their family of 5. The book was published, and Corey began promoting it, appearing on local radio and television stations in March of 2023. She spoke of her personal journey, her desire to help other families grappling with grief, presenting herself as a sensitive, empathetic mother navigating unimaginable loss. My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year. And to make sense and process, I'm sure, she told a local news outlet, her words resonating with sincerity. Viewers saw a bereaved young woman who tragically lost her husband, a narrative that seemed to solidify her image as a victim of circumstance. This carefully crafted narrative, however, was about to be challenged by an anonymous email that arrived just days after one of her public appearances. The message, brief but damning, contained a single line in all capital letters. You know, she killed her husband. This stark accusation, delivered anonymously, cast a dark shadow over Corey's carefully constructed persona. It was a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of suspicion that had already begun to grow. Meanwhile, authorities, initially guided by the EMT's observation of blood and the possibility of an aneurysm, had received the official autopsy report. The findings were not of a ruptured blood vessel, but something far more sinister. The cause of death was unequivocally stated as drug intoxication fentanyl. The report indicated a lethal dosage, 5 times the amount that could kill an individual. This discovery dramatically shifted the direction of the investigation. The possibility of a natural death, or even an accidental overdose, was now overshadowed by the chilling realization that Eric Richins may have been murdered. The question that loomed large was no longer, how did he die, but rather, who administered the fatal dose and why? The narrative of the grieving widow was about to collide with the grim reality of a potential homicide investigation. Chapter 14. The Unraveling of Secrets. The autopsy report confirming fentanyl intoxication as the cause of Eric Richins' death sent shockwaves through his family and ignited a criminal investigation. Eric's family came forward, expressing immediate suspicion towards Corey. They stated unequivocally that Eric did not do drugs. This assertion contradicted the autopsy findings and pointed towards foul play. The initial hypothesis of an accidental overdose was quickly dismissed, replaced by the chilling possibility that Eric had been murdered. Law enforcement secured a search warrant for the Richins' home, seeking any evidence of illegal drugs or clues to how the fentanyl entered Eric's system. Despite a thorough search, no fentanyl was found within the residence. However, during this investigation, lead detective Jamie Woody interviewed Corey. She reiterated the family's stance, expressing shock and denial, asserting that Eric never used drugs. The investigators began to probe Corey's personal and financial life, seeking a motive. Their investigation revealed a woman burdened by immense debt. Her ambitious real estate ventures, particularly the ambitious Midway Mansion project, were costing millions, far exceeding her financial capacity. The mansion, while a symbol of her aspirations, was unfinished and hemorrhaging money, allegedly financed through risky, hard money loans, short-term, high-interest loans. Corey had apparently lost the mansion to foreclosure. The family's suspicions about Corey's financial situation were further fueled by a significant revelation. Eric's sister, Amy, stated that Eric had discovered in 2020 that Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against their home, a home Eric solely owned, without his knowledge or consent. This deception, this financial maneuver that could have jeopardized their family's security, had deeply shaken Eric. The family believed this revelation was a major catalyst for Eric changing his trust documents, ensuring his sons would be taken care of. While Corey and Eric had reportedly attended counseling and did not separate, the breach of trust was profound. The family felt that Corey had lied about their finances, creating a permanent rift.